guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome back to Smite Masters. I'm going to start calling this one Elimination Central. Every set from this point forward, someone's going home. And, well, someone either gets to advance or at the very end of it, they just get a lot of money and feel really good about it being a winner themselves. And you too can be a winner because I'm proud to say that Alienware is partnering with us again here in Season 9. Now, if you remember the talks from last year, these players out there are playing on the Aurora Ryzen R10 desktops, beasts of machines, 240 hertz Alienware monitors as well. So you want to make sure that you go check out all of the fantastic Alienware products that you can get while you can, and make sure you do it sooner rather than later. It'll enhance your gaming experience. Of course, you can follow them on Twitter, on Instagram, at Alienware, and go to alienwarearena.com to join their global community, as well as for giveaways and a lot more. So thank you once again to Alienware, and thank you to Ro, who's sitting on the desk with me here as we go to... I feel like this matchup happens way too often. Like, Elimination Central, and these two teams who almost always, like, it feels like they are magnetically drawn to each other.
They are.
Which is great for the Dragons, not as good for the Bolts. It's been, there's a few wins over there, but this is a definitely lopsided matchup that we've seen in the past.
I've been there, so it's a tough time, but it always...
You know better than I do.
Yeah, unfortunately. Always these players are motivated against the Jade Dragons, so this is their biggest foe right now. It's their biggest challenge. Obviously, Titans are kind of popping off right now as well, so they have to look at those as well. But Dragons, if they can get over that hurdle, it feels like they could accomplish anything. But you have to remember, these are our 1 and 2 seed coming into this tournament. Just about a month ago, we saw these two teams slog it out at some of the highest level of play we've seen this year. And then all of a sudden, a new meta comes and things shake up. New meta maybe feels better for Jade Dragons and worse for the Bolts, but both teams now getting the chance to study picks and bans from the enemy teams in the tournament, so they're able to replicate some of their success. They've seen Titans play, so maybe they'll emulate some of that. We saw a lot of Mercury on layers. We've already seen Lasbro pull out the Mercury, so we can see if he do that again. We've seen Jake kind of had some off games on ESET, for example. We saw Genetics have a very off game on ESET the last game, so maybe they look away from that towards the Nox, for example. And then another one that I've liked to see, we just saw Solo Troll have a huge game on Ula, and we've also seen Haddox pull that one out as well. So I think we see some pretty spicy stuff in the solo lane this matchup.
I can't remember which tournament I wrote this after. I had to go look it up, though. May 1st, whenever that was in the grand scheme of Phase 1. I want to say it might have been after the Seeding Land Finals. Yeah. The Dragons and the Bolts were 14-4 at the time. It is now 15-4 in favor of the Dragons. And that was, what, 2 games? It was a 2-0 yesterday, I believe. No, it was 3.
Yeah.
So it goes up to 40 games in favor of the Dragons and 16 that the Bolts have been able to win. So that is not a particularly gleaming record on one side. The other side, though, I'm sure the Dragons want to. For some reason, it's a brick wall, and we'll see if they can smash through it here. Nox, Daji, Artemis banned out by the Dragons. Kepri, Mercury, Amuz, and Cobb banned out by the Bolts. And so with, I was going to say, 2 very specifically, like, of the top hunters that have been eliminated, maybe stifling some of what the Dragons are able to do with this triple ADC comp that they've been pulling out.
Yeah, and we're talking about that Mercury as well. Equally good DPS as a normal hunter, and we saw Layers first pick him in that set we just watched. Sam probably has one of the best Mercuries in the game, so not surprising to see that ban taken away from Jade Dragons, but that means they leave open the Chernobog, which I think has actually been outperforming Jing Wei in some regard, because you kind of still get that late game prowess and that great scaling, but you also get the insurance of the early game, able to take these early rotations and fight your way through the early game to secure yourself that farm and secure yourself a position in those late game team fights.
We've been seeing a lot of Osiris jungle. Now, this is something that Haddox can also play, so it has a little bit of flexibility for the Bolts.
Yeah.
The Jingwei doesn't. That's Vera.
We've seen Jingwei mid before. I believe it was a couple seasons ago. I think Dardez played it mid.
Pry it from his cold, dead hand.
No way. There's
like, he's not going to let it go.
That Barra is going to let anybody else on this team play Jingwei.
I mean, look at that. That smile, that's a guy who's playing Jingwei.
Yeah, and you don't want to see him angry as well. Don't take that Jingwei away from him. I think this is what, we're getting close to 110 at this point, I think. So,
yeah, this will be like 106, 107.
Yeah.
It's I'm going to say, maybe too much.
That's arguable, yeah. I mean, look, he's playing for money, so he'll do what he needs, and he's very, very good at this god. But Chernobog and Jingwei pretty equal matchup. I don't think we'll see too much action in that lane. However, a lane that we will see action in is that Ula, which I imagine is going towards solo lane, or to Pagon in the mid lane. Both gods that both characters both players that like to get in there in the early game.
I know Uller, specifically Pagon, played this, twice earlier, I believe, when they brought it in with everything else around them. The Poseidon,
do not forget.
Look, if this is a normal, like, quote-unquote normal team, I guess, is maybe an outlandish way to describe it, but any other regular meta from Season 8 prior, Season 7 prior, halfway through Season 8 prior, we'll cut it there. This Poseidon, we're going, okay, cool. So it's going to be an Uller solo, Poseidon in the mid, and we got a Chernobog over there in duo, or you can swap the carries. But like that, it's almost guaranteed. This has been going to the jungle more often than not. And so this feels like most of the backline for the Dragons locked in. Do you like put them pushing maybe the frontliners a little further back? And more specifically, do you like the Poseidon in the jungle?
I like the Poseidon in the jungle. I'm still not a huge fan of this triple hunter comp, which we might be going towards in the Jade Dragons, but they've made it work before. I'm wrong. They are right. That is just 100% true. This comp seems to be working very well for them before. I wouldn't be surprised if they played this exact composition actually with it as well. I think Uller is better suited on Pagon. I don't think FinoK is much of an Uller player himself, and he still has plenty of options available to him in that solo lane. So Uller is something I imagine will be slotted into the mid lane, Chernobog into the ADC role here, and then Poseidon in the jungle, just like you said.
Ola run, Bastet, banned out by the Dragons, the Bolts. They are targeting just Mike. They said, you know what? That Ymir was very potent against us specifically yesterday, so we're going to limit that a little bit, and they banned that one away. And the Baron Samedi, something that, while it lost its 100% win rate, I think is still up in the 90s for the Dragons.
Can't argue with that. That's just
when
a
Mike
great
is
pick.
playing it. Yeah, so just stop it as soon as you can. But they do get the emoji. Jake has been the topic, at least in my eyes, because it feels like outside of the Nox, oh man, if that emoji wasn't already there, I'd be freaking out a little bit. But without the Nox, it feels like a lot of the mages that they've tried to run as support, at least the last few days, have not worked out for him.
Not really. Nox is really the star, but that's why Jade Dragons have banded away from Jake, because he is very good at Circuit. I'm surprised to see. Is that a Circuit support, maybe? We haven't seen one of those in a little while.
Yeah, it's after the changes. Like, the change is specifically designed to stop her from being as strong of a support and maybe help her jungle out a little bit.
So Aggro is watching closely now to see if he's done his job well enough.
He got his notes on the Erlong changes earlier. Now he's like, all right, hold on, what's going on?
And it's, I guess, Circuit support. I can't imagine anybody else is going in support role. Circuit is relatively good into the Umoja in a 1v1 support matchup, which we don't see too often, but Circuit generally struggles into ESET. An exciting game for a Circuit support. We haven't seen it since the change, not that I can remember at least, and that would put Uller in the mid lane as well and Cleaner in the solo lane. So a lot of objective DPS, but it kind of fits the style of what Mike has been playing so far with his team composition. He played the Fafnir first with this, or if he just finds a hammer, that target dies because of all the damage. And then he played Kepri. If he finds a pull, that target dies. Well, what better god to pick someone with than Circuit? If he finds a target with that Circuit ultimate, throws them back into his team, they're going to die.
And the good news is, as well, I mean, like, we haven't seen it as much, but like one of the deadliest things that this Circuit was doing, maybe the beginning of this year, it might have been the end of last year, but like two-man taunts were nuts. And they were happening way too reliably for a lot of these players. So like there's a little bit more of that CC to be thrown out there. Moral of the story is don't get caught out or you're dead. Amaterasu's the final lock-in, someone that I've highlighted as very powerful in the right hands. Although we've seen kind of back and forth, I think, with her so far this week. That more, in my mind, confirms the Osiris for the jungle?
I would say confirms, yeah. I definitely don't want to see Amaterasu in the jungle. I don't think it'd be terrible, but I would prefer just to see Osiris in the jungle. You can go that stone cutting and kind of outbox the teammate, the enemies on the Jade Dragons. Then Amaterasu can sit in the solo lane and we'll have a generally even, decent lane with Cleaner, I think.
Honestly, a surprisingly tame draft from the Bolts, right? Like, outside of the Osiris,
that's fair.
Everything's pretty much normal. I mean, ESET's definitely, I think, a little fresh, but we did start to see a little more ESET mid towards the end of Phase 1. We saw, I think, Paul play it a little bit earlier, so it's not, like, completely out of nowhere, even though we haven't seen it too much. Whereas the Dragons, I mean, this fits a lot of what they've been doing. Downside, very squishy. The Circuit's scaling has been changed so that she's not going to be as tanky a little bit later on. I don't care what kind of items you throw on a Poseidon to clean it. Like, they can get there-ish, but they're still going to get burned down.
That's
Do you think that's going to end up affecting them, or can they maybe get so far ahead that it doesn't matter?
I don't even think they need to be far ahead. They just need to keep range at the right point. Whereas if the enemy comes forward, hit them before they hit you. So that is your defense. Your offense becomes your defense, and they have a lot of offense as well. And walking past that circuit is not easy. Sure, like maybe 2 people could go at once, and it might be easier. But then, like you said, you could get 2 people taunted at once, and all of a sudden, both of them are dead. So I think the Amaterasu pick kind of helps a little bit in that regard. You might be able to dash forward, or you have your CC immune ult to walk forward, and then the E-set peel in the mid. I think it just kind of comes down to if bolts can stay grouped without, their front line being too far forward and getting pulled in by a circuit, they might be safe. But otherwise, if they give too much space to Jade Dragons, they'll find a target, and that target might be an objective as well.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch what the Dragons are going to do here. I think that they have provided us a very, I'm going to call it eclectic. I think that's a fun word for it. A draft that they've been able to lock in. The Bolts, though, are where my eyes are at. Things have not necessarily been going too well for them so far this tournament. 1 win yesterday, and then 1 game up against the Dragons, but 2 losses there, 2 losses to the Kings. So they're hoping to bounce back here. But again, this matchup has not been kind to them throughout history. Will they be able to push back against that tenured history that the Dragons have? Or will the Dragons put themselves one step closer to being able to eliminate the Bolts? This is all going to be step number 1. Road, just as quick as you can possibly tell me, who do you have in this one?
I've got Jade Dragons. I think they're adapting to the meta faster than the Bolts are. Bolts are very traditional in this regard. I'm not sure it's going to keep up with the meta.
I like how cut and dry that was. Just the Dragons have been adapting a little bit better, and I guess we'll get to see if this adaptation is what's going to win. Osiris, Jingwei, Yamoja, Iset, and Ama are what they... Well, I guess it's not what their tournament hopes are riding on, but it's one step closer to potentially having to rely on this one. We'll figure out, can the Bolts do it here in game number 1?
It's always going to be something interesting when the Dragons are on the back foot, and, well, we get to see Cirquet's support make her way back after so long from being gone. Game number 1 between the Dragons and the Bolts. Elimination on the line in the first of the remaining 4 teams to be sent home with a loss on this set. It's J-Mac, Trelly, and Doug. Got to give Doug a good shout for how long he's been sticking around with us throughout this tournament. And let's kind of maybe talk about the Circuit Sport, especially with the fact that PBM is rushing a Lono's Mask first item.
That does seem to be the play. PBM, it's interesting because with these comps, with this new meta that we've seen, usually having one tank, it's difficult if your tank is not safe. And Polar Bear Mike is arguably one of the safest supports you can go in Circuit. The fact that she has so much mobility, CC immunity, CC just in general. So as long as Mike is able to stay safe and it's able to set up for his team and get out when he needs to, I think this pick will work just fine. It really just depends on how quickly he's being blown up late game. Most of your CC you have to get, as Mifflin says, he has to commit his body. He has to get very close to them to be able to CC any of the Bolts here. And if they're getting crit by Barracuda, if they're getting CC'd by Ven, I think it'll be pretty difficult. But right now, I'm expecting to see Mike get very aggressive, maybe wait for Sam to come over and see if they can find some aggression in that duo lane.
Good axe toss from Pagon, and some decent follow-up damage after puts Venenu down to half HP. But thanks to this Warlock Staff rush, completely skipping an actual starter item for Venenu, who's got a little bit of an extra HP. Charlie, are you a fan of this skipping starter to try and get Warlocks on first item right away?
Yeah, Ven wants to be Paul so bad. That is what he did, and then he got Sands of Time right after the Warlocks. I do like it. I think that just Tier 2 Warlocks gives you a fair amount of stats. As long as you're backing the second you can finish that Warlocks, and you're not really missing the MP5 that Sands of Time gives you. So I think it works out, and because of these new changes in 9.5, you don't have many chances of dying. As long as you're playing pretty safe, it doesn't really matter that you're starting this Tier 2 Warlocks. It's just going to get you online faster, more HP, more damage, so I definitely don't hate it.
We got to see a little bit of the display of what Kalina Solo is able to do, just a round rapid fire of every single ability, but unfortunately they're going up against a warrior, so Final K's not going to get a whole lot of poke back. Haddix will be able to sustain up very nicely just that first ability, but a rotation over by Lasbra towards this blue buff could spell maybe an early 2v2 scuffle in the solo lane. Meanwhile, PBM wrapping pretty heavily far in the back line there. Keeps it interesting in the duo lane. Blue buff does get secured by Sam, so no further fight now from the Bolts. Lasbra will just take his loss there, and he'll back himself up.
Yeah, looking at the Bolts comp, I mean, Lasbra starting this Mannequin Scepter, going into Golden Blade here. PBM going to get a little CC now, but again, Circuit, really safe. He's not going to be in too much trouble. I just think the Bolts have so much early pressure. With double Warriors with Golden Blade, they have to be invading that blue buff on cooldown, and what can Final K really do to try and confirm it? Nothing until his ultimate's up, and at that point, you still don't want to get too close to the Mannequin Scepter Osiris. And you saw what happened. Sanford Soccer sort of tried to fight over that buff, but then realized, wait, I don't have Kraken. There's no way I'm out trading you either, so I'm also going to have to forfeit some of that farm.
PBM doesn't steal the purple buff. A valiant attempt. Now gets hit by the Riptide and will have to dash himself through what narrow gap was available to him. But noticing something that at least I've noticed this from the bolts very heavily is that Jake will get a little caught out here, have to use his beads with the rotation over by Sam. But oftentimes when the second rotation of the buff comes up, Jake will just leave Barracuda by himself to go do the buff, and Jake will instead push up to like enemy tower line consistently to keep pushing those minions against him.
Yeah, right now as a support, you just have to just run at people and say, hey, I'm going to let my ADC get free farm. I'm going to be as annoying as possible. Mike did it, and then we saw Jake do it. Unfortunately for Jake, had to use the beads. PPM obviously has Blink wanting to get active in this lane, wanting to find, but Sanford Soccer has Kraken here.
Level 5 doesn't find the Whirlpool because the Axe Toss just off the mark by Pagon, so no Kraken to rapid fire right back for Sam. Instead, they'll just clear up the wave, him and Pagon. Sam will go for an invade to the back camp. Lasbra low in mana, but pretty healthy in HP. That Kraken probably not going to be enough damage to kill just yet.
Yeah, there's a fair bit of chain CC you can get off the Kraken, but with natural just Osiris warrior stats, I think unless Sanford Soccer goes back and finishes a full Doom Orb, he's not going to be too worried, and Lasbro can probably juke the most of that damage. He has back and get the Golden Blade, and Haddix will do the same. So this is one where I'm expecting to see an influx of farm. Right now, the Jade Dragons have a small lead in gold. I'm expecting that to change to the Olympus Bolts just the way of how quickly they should be able to get to their camps. Of course, Poseidon with Doom Orb can do just the same thing. It just really depends on where Lasbro tries to put some of this pressure. Remember, he started Blink as well, so he has to get active wherever he can.
Starting with that Blink versus the beads for Sam, recognizing how much CC's up against. I mean, you got to chew through an E set with all of her CC. You got to get through all the slows with Lasbra. You get an ultimate out of Panda Cat to get back to lane a little bit quicker. Kind of.
That's not fair.
That's it. That's the expressway. I mean, technically you have to go to an enemy, so that's his risk. But his reward is that Bear was outside of the tower and there was no one there to punish him.
Yeah, he just used teleport, essentially. He said, I'm going to... I mean, I think it's smart at this point. Where is Panda Cat really rotating to at 5 minutes? Hold that thought. Jake is going to find Sanford Soccer here.
Sam does have the Kraken available. Gets taunted back through. Will fire off that Kraken. It's jumped over by Lasbra. But Lasbra's going to get hit by the Axe Toss after one more auto is all that's needed to take down Lasbra. And Pagon will jump on top of his head to take him down for first blood. But can Panda Cat find a way out? No, he cannot. It's Venenu picking up the kill.
Well, I said, where's Panda Cat gonna ult? And I figured out that he probably wished he had it there. Unfortunately, he will fall down. At least Sanford Soccer turned that one around on the Lasbra. Great Lord of the Afterlife, too, to immune the Kraken, but it looks like the Jade Dragons are not done here. PPM, very weak, but very agile as well. Not gonna put himself too far out of position just for a purple buff.
Finds that double Cobra's Kiss, but still, even with the help of Sam, he's not gonna get a purple buff. Instead, he's gonna lose. And Barracuda taunting him for his efforts. Nice little pickup by the Olympus Bolts. They get a kill onto their carry, and they get a kill on Ven from that previous fight.
Yeah, I don't even blame Barra for the cheeky laugh there. He just wanted the purple buff, and he's like, all right, you already Kraken, you don't have beats, no reason for you to go for this. And Sam's like, I'm going to go for it anyways, and just gets chain stunned into the knockup. So that is going to help out a ton. You really, if anyone wants to get a kill right now, I would say it's Barracuda on this Jingwei. Has the Dev Gauntlets already. And now that he's going to have a comfortable level lead in this duo lane, I have to imagine the Panda Cat is going to be not ulting the lane anymore and probably sitting pretty far back in that lane respectively.
Yeah, probably not. You know, probably after using it to get in the lane and then wishing you had it and dying, maybe a little bit better on holding on to that ultimate for Panda Cat. PBM just misses out at the taunt on Lasbra that would have kept him up in that lane, delay him a little bit longer, but for now, PBM will be able to retreat back. Him and Jake both level 5. Both of them will catch each other's sights in the jungle. And they'll, well, Jake will throw a couple of basics. PBM will just walk menacingly at him as best as he can.
Yeah, I'm just keeping an eye on the junglers right now. We were seeing Lasbra back at level 6, where Sanford Soccer was still getting Scorpion at level 7, and that's where that level lead is at the moment. Sanford Soccer is 0-1 with 1 assist, but does have a little bit of a lead in the jungle right now. Lasbra tried to go for that fight, obviously fell behind, and while he was dead, Sam was getting some farm. He also died a little bit later at the purple buff, but just zooming across the map right now with Zoom Orb built is Sanford Soccer. He is posturing towards that left side of the map, but I think there's nothing really shouting kill opportunity, more so just let's get oracles, and if you see anything that I can crack in PPM, you can set me up for it.
Jake does split the oracles 1-to-1, so no vision control around the Fury for this first rotation of the Fury's kind of life cycle around there. The Jade Dragons, they lost their purple buff earlier on to the Bolts, with the pressure that Barra has, they can make a rotation to try and stop this, but they will not. Instead, it'll be the Jade Dragons maintaining that buff for themselves. That'll get PandaCat his purple after losing it previously and Sam losing his life.
Yeah, during that, though, the Olympus Bolts were able to confirm the obelisk for themselves, and now they've got a trebuchet sitting in the back left of the map, maybe, or I guess the top left from our point of view, but their back left, I should say. They're going to have that, and they can use it whenever they really want to. Are they able to send it down now? Probably not. More so than not, we've been seeing that trebuchet saved for 18-plus minutes whenever the Fire Giant is being looked at, so we'll expect to see more from that when we can, as PBM is just looking for anything. I imagine he just has his sights zeroed in on anyone he can CC, trying to get some relics down, so then Sam for Soccer can find that follow-up immediately after.
I mean, he's got the bait on the fishing hook. He's carrying the dollar bill around, hoping that anybody will try and grab it, but so far nobody has gone for the bite just yet. Maybe you can find something on Barracuda, but Barra's level 10 right now. PandaCat struggling to keep up in that XP department. He just now ticked over to level 9, so it's a full level that Barra has up, and a few stacks on that Devourer's Gauntlet, just all the same. So probably not the best boxing target to take up against Barra.
Man, looking at Ven's build, he's got to be one of the hardest characters in the game to kill right now. He's going to have a lot of HP. He has the silence. He's just so slippery as well. Then just drop Circle of Protection. You got to kill him, 1.5 times at that rate. So I can't imagine too much pressure is going to be put onto this ESET. PBM, though, is getting chain stunned.
Massive CC chain. That stun will miss. Axe toss from Pagon will make sure that Jake doesn't go any further forward. So PBM can rest and thank that he had a mid laner to eat some of the attention. Final K needs a little bit of help on the right side of the map, though, because Haddix has been able to keep him at the Tier 1 tower line for pretty much the entirety of this game.
Yeah, I've been keeping my eye on Haddix's relic just in case we see that horrific emblem be used to grab a beads, but has not been used just yet. Final K has been relatively safe, getting poked out here and there, but saving onto those beads just in case. And I imagine that is the play, right? Haddix uses the horrific, says, you gotta beads this, and then I also have Dazzling Offensive after the fact so that I can chase you down. And Kalina just extremely safe with Soul Eater. She can essentially full heal off the wave whenever it comes. Sam for Soccer, though, he's looking for Haddix.
We'll get the Whirlpool, but no Kraken fired. Instead, it's Pyromancer started up by the Olympus. Bolt a distraction to keep the Jade Dragons away. Haddix will dive aggressively to Sam to make sure to keep the jungler out, while the Olympus Bolts pick up the Pyro. The first neutral objective of the game goes to the Bolts.
And now it looks like Haddix might be the target here. PBM looking for any bit of CC, and that Dazzling Offensive should be the end of this chase, as it looks like, yeah, it looks like PandaCat ulted in on the left side.
Whoa, Barracuda versus PandaCat, and that one might just go to PandaCat. The second dashes through to the exact they trade out. It's a 1-for-1, but props to Panda, who was losing that initial 1v1.
Yeah, it was... He ulted in, felt very confident, then Barra started winning, beautiful dash, and then the trade. That's just a solo for solo. We can just net that as nothing, essentially. Barracuda is a level up, and will get to lane much faster. And to be honest, PandaCat loses his ult, so it's definitely better for Barra, but he was 2-0 in that regard as well. So I think props to Panda for finding that kill, and I think Barracuda's going to get the better of it as the game goes on, just because he gets more farm for free. But still, it was a nice little fight that we got to see. Given this meta, we usually don't see too many 1v1s from the Hunters.
I mean, even props to the fact it's not just a 1-for-1 trade-out thing, like somebody came back and got that last hit. They both fired their final auto to get the kill on each other there. That's a rare sight to be seen as we get a nice perspective from PandaCat's point of view. I mean, look, he initiated this fight at half HP, and then he got this sick dash into the wall, gets the second hit, and then the 1-for-1 auto trade out. That's just beauty right there.
Yeah, I love seeing the player cams as well. I think if only we could see Barracuda on what he was reacting to, but PandaCat definitely thought that he had those. Yeah, oh, that's true. We do get to see him. He's just sitting there smiling with his little crown on.
Yeah. Gotta make sure that the King of the Hunters says, oh, actually, we don't get to see it, unfortunately. They took his player cam away. How are we gonna see Smiling Bear if they take the camera away?
Well, we just know he's there smiling, because
True.
he's always smiling, especially after getting a nice little kill in that lane. Looking at the builds, though, this is what I was talking about. Tier 2 Silver Branch mode, a PandaCat's nothing, essentially, and has a second relic, opted to get that shell. So wasn't net in the 1v1 department, just being able to get back to farm quicker, and PandaCat losing his ultimate is going to start to hurt him.
Is that one level lead still between the two of them? Rotation by Pagon will not continue forward, as there are 3 of the Olympus Bolts around that mid camp. And Charlie, we're seeing 2 to 3 right now. Gold is fairly even. It's a 1K lead for the Olympus Bolts right now. XP kind of in that same department. If you're the Dragons, you know that you're a team that's typically geared more towards doing these early skirmishes, trying to get the ball rolling. If you're the Dragons, where do you try and make that mark?
Well, I mean, you have to follow around Sanford Soccer. PBM and Sanford Soccer, I should say, are going to be sticking pretty close together. Whenever a Cobra's Kiss comes through, you can essentially drop the Kraken. There's no Aegises on the right side. The Olympus Bolts do not have them to their name, so you're going to get the full brunt of that damage. And the fact that Sanford Soccer itemized into Pythags, you'll be getting a buff as long as you stick around him. So PBM should be just frontlining and essentially roaming. Wherever he can find any sort of lockdown, see if you can follow up. Pagon's got a lot of damage to his name, but if the axe doesn't connect, you don't really have much set up there.
He's got a lot of damage, but Venenu's got a lot of health. It was a Warlock staff into an Ethereal staff. That's an immense amount of extra HP that this E-set has in the mid lane, on top of all the extra HP she just naturally got from the 9.5 buff. So it's going to be very difficult to chip away at this health bar without things like Crit, without kin size.
Or if you're Benny Q, maybe you build an early Heartseeker. You know,
Ooh.
that is just something that could help chip away. Ullr is a character that can make use of that. Right now, Pagon probably building into the Hydras, but if it was an early Heartseeker, I imagine it would help a little bit of this massive HP build that Venenu opted to go for there. It looks like Lasbra already building into some tank stats. He's 0-1 right now on this Osiris. We haven't seen him get too active on the map thus far. With the stone cutting and the golden blade, though, I imagine he's going to be doing a fair bit of damage as long as he's able to trade autos. That could be a Magi's or probably a Spirit Robe.
Could be. We'll keep our eyes on what Lasbra elects to build in that slot. PBM will steal away an offering, but he ran into a level 15 Jingwei in the jungle, and that's not a trade that PBM can take with only Alono's Mask and tier 2 of that Spirit Robe I've been seeing from the supports so often. Barracuda, with that full Silver Branch bow online, has a decent bit of extra percent pin to box into these tanks. And instead, for now, Barra will just go ahead and clean up those Heartbeat camps. Fine, okay, in danger, Dazzling Offensive, not going to find the stun.
Ooh.
And that could have been the death of Final K. He'll walk himself out the wall, but it's a slow ride on top, and Final K will go down to the double warrior out of the Olympus Bolts. They've got 4 up on the board. PBM trying to get things going, though, with Venenu, who'll use the beads and back himself away with the help of the Riptide from Jake.
Yeah, I think the Jade Dragons realized how much was going on the right side of the map, tried to get active on the left. They really weren't able to pull a Gold Fury. That just wouldn't have went down too quickly. You have the Kraken for burst, but Circle of Protection is also there.
Big Kraken doesn't get a whole lot. Quick beads coming out of both the Warriors will get them out. Pagon leaps into the middle. It's a dunk in from Lasbra, but he only finds Sam. Not the ideal target for him. Likely aiming for Pagon as well, but for now, the Olympus Bolts can retreat after getting a decent set of relics away from the Dragons and start shredding away this Gold Fury. Mike cannot even walk in as Haddix is playing goaltender to the Gold Fury that goes to the Bolts.
Yeah, that was a beautiful team fight by the Olympus Bolts. Sam had a decent Kraken, but they just didn't have the damage to confirm, and now just getting the Pyromancer is going to be a solid consolation prize. At this point, you should be happy you can get anything after the Bolts played that so cleanly. Looking at these tanks, I don't see anyone that's going to be able to kill Haddix right now. Maybe some lucky kills, or lucky crits rather, from Panic Hat, but with the Frostbound and just trying to trade those auto attacks, Final K cannot even really sit in lane. We saw what happened when, when Lasbra was able to make that gank over. I thought him getting into the wall with 1 HP would be enough, but there was no dash up just yet.
Now with that dash down, it makes it very tough for a god like Kleena with no other kinds of mobility, no CC immunity to get away from. Just such an annoying style of build, man. Frostbound is just annoying to go against as anybody, especially if you're a carry or any kind of assassin, because you don't get to have fun. You don't get to walk fast. You don't get to go far. For PBM, he gets to go far enough with a good double Cobra's Kiss. That hits both of the dual lane of the Olympus Bolts, and that finds him a path out.
I'm actually amazed that Ven has done the least damage in this game. With that build, I mean, he's just been farming. Yeah, I've seen the Circle of Protection drop, and then it's mostly just, hey, everyone, let's run away from this and heal up if we need. We've just seen not too much action out of the mid laner thus far. Barracuda sitting at level 17 at 1650, which is, back by old patch standards, that's not that great, but given right now, I think Barracuda is essentially power farming right now with how much he's been able to build for himself, probably sitting on a fair amount of gold as well. This is what you want to see when you have a Jingwei on your team, just focusing on, you don't have to rotate to too many team fights, you don't have to show too much dominance in lane, you really just want to get as much gold and items as possible, and then rotate to this Fire Giant fight at 20 plus minutes.
Group up in the mid lane by the Olympus Bolts. Not going to find anything, just defending their tier 1 that's been taking some decent damage by Pagon. PBM will dash himself away. Pagon walks past the stun from Awesome Jake. And with this group of the Bolts, obviously with the Pyromancer and the Gold Fury down, there's not many objectives and much that the Bolts can do. Maybe try and get themselves another Trebuchet on the next spawn, though, because that previous one did go to the Jade Dragons, and they've got one in the exact same lane. Didn't we see a Trebuchet duel at some point?
Yeah, we've only seen one Trebuchet duel in the SPL, or at least, you know, in this tournament we've seen one where they just stacked up against each other and then just started firing. I don't know if they will launch them at the same time. There's really no neutral objectives that anyone's looking at just yet. It looks like Sanford Soccer might be trying to wrap around here, and PBM finds Lasbra.
Does find the taunt onto Lasbra, gets the ultimate as well, throws Lasbra away, and no Kraken to follow up by Sam. So Lasbra will just get to take himself right back to base and reset as if nothing happened. Didn't even use any of his relics.
Yeah, just Lore of the Afterlife, and, you know, PBM obviously had to use his ult there, so now we just have to wait and see where they're going to be looking for aggression there. He probably wanted beads, if just, you know, at that point, you're not going to get anything. Sanford Soccer looking for something. I feel bad because the Jade Dragons really can't find any form of aggression on the map right now. They're trying to force fights, but there's just no objectives up. The Olympus Bolts, they don't have to fight. They don't want to.
I mean, they really don't. When you look over down at the Jade Dragons comp, FinalK's not building any kind of defense to his name. He went Soul Leader into pure damage of this route. Mike is the only one who's building tanky on this team. I mean, even Lasbra in the jungle is building some kind of defense here. It feels like the Jade Dragons have now put themselves on a time clock before they're not just outright going to be able to fight anybody.
Yeah, we're going to have to see if they're able to get these relics down early so that they can just blow through with Sanford Soccer's Kraken or with the burst damage. Sanford Soccer is getting found out in the jungle. I was going to say hi-rez is getting found out, but it looks like he was returning more damage than was being done to him.
He will find an escape path out, or maybe a new option to get back into the team fight with the rest of his teammates. FinalK will dash forward, hit a little bit of damage up against hi-rez. Fury about a minute out from respawn. Pyromancer will be shortly after that. Jake gets caught out, and you can see some of the damage coming up against this Yamoja for now, but still holding on to beads. FinalK eats the slow, pops the beads, but those beads and that Aegis will not be enough. The double warriors once again from the bolts will take down FinalK. Can they find a path out? The route is good. Kraken is available to Sam, but he's not going to fire it yet again. It will this time, but Lasbra can just jump out.
Yeah, just Lord of the Afterlife once again. I think hi-rez could have been a better target there. Didn't have the ult available, but had beads and dash, so even that probably wouldn't have been able to net a kill. The Olympus Bolts, they're just going for mid-tower here. I thought they were rotating over to try and collapse, and they might do it now, but they got a tower on the way. They were not worried about the push that the Jade Dragons were going for. Sanford Soccer and Pagon are on the escape here.
Jake just wants to get close enough to catch somebody in that River's Rebuke, maybe catch somebody for Bear to grab. Has the beats, the axe toss out of Pagon. Awesome Jake still holding on to that River's Rebuke. PBM sitting in the side jungle. Axe does hit Jake. Sam will fire some damage back through, but not going to be enough. Now all 5 of the bolts can regroup towards this right side of the map. But Pagon and Mike are still walking forward. Mike has got to get out of here before he runs into a problem he can't escape.
Yeah, right now Primal Fury spawned as that chase was happening, and Pyromancer as well. One wrong move here, couldn't add a Fire Giant. Everyone pretty much is healthy, and all of the Jade Dragons have returned as FinalK is coming back in from base.
A little bit of time. Mike will go in with the last breath. He'll get stunned by Venenu. hi-rez eating a lot of crit damage in the backline. Use that dazzling offensive. Defensively this time, River's Rebuke come out, but it will not save Jake. FinalK finally able to find a kill and fight. Pagon jumps into the backline, finds the X-Toss onto Venenu, needs a couple more shots to take him down, and will find it. Pagon picks up the second kill, but now PBM is the one in danger. Lasbra has got to ult himself out, and the Jade Dragons find 2 around the Pyro.
That is going to be a nice answer back. What are they going to get with it, though? Do they just get the Pyromancer after the fact? With this many dead, hi-rez is going to need a Kraken here, and he's gone.
Gone. Eliminated, erased from the map, doesn't matter. Finally, when Sam is able to let one of these Krakens rip on a target he can hit, we can see how much damage they do, and that set up them for the Fire Giant for the Jade Dragons. It's a slow burn with Barracuda around. Pagon eating basic after basic from Barracuda. Lasbra here. This is a coin toss that I'm not sure the Dragons want to take. Lasbra finds Sam. Barra gets FinalK. Barra will dash himself out. Panicat needs one more auto, but he won't find it. It'll be Pagon who grabs him with the hail of arrows after. The Fire Giant has been stopped, but it's now the Dragons on the run.
Lasbra has Blink, but no more chase will ensue. As long as the Fire Giant or the Pyromancer doesn't go down, that's essentially just a few kills for the Jade Dragons to grab, and now just a reset. Now, Olympus Bolts, that could have been much worse. I think they're probably pretty happy with just losing a few members, getting some return kills, and no neutral objective going down. Beautiful fight, though. I mean, it was more so just the Olympus Bolts staying a little bit too long. There was no health Barracuda was able to fly back in and whip out a lot of damage on this Jingwei with that Venom Deathbringer and that sort of thing, but it could have been a lot worse. Pagon went huge there, jumping to the backline, got a lot of relics, sitting 3-0 right now, and finally finishes that Heartseeker. So being able to shred through some of this HP that Ven has been building as well is going to help out a ton.
I mean, Ven has built a lot of HP for himself and a lot of damage-based items, but so far when I was looking at the player damage in that fight, Venenu is still sitting at the bottom of the chart. He's only like maybe 700 to 1,000 above what he was moments ago. And Charlie, we've gone through multiple team fights. Is it to the point where Venenu is just becoming a heal bot for his team, or does he need to start getting some of this damage out there?
Yeah, I really think it's hard to play this E set when you're getting aggressed upon because you have to drop Circle of Protection defensively, and then the Jade Dragon just say, we're simply not going to step in that. You have to use it offensively. You have to use it off your team CC so that you can force where you want to fight. Right now, though, I think Ven is using it just to try and keep the team alive. They haven't really had some great opportunities for it except for on that Gold Fury, but now that he's online, he's got Soul Reaver, he's got a fair bit of damage built. I have to imagine Ven's looking to use this to try and, you know, peel off some of the aggression from Polar Bear Mike, and then on the counter engage, use that Circle Protection, maybe on this Fire Giant pit, for example.
We do see the Dragons grouped around Fire. Panda Cat will go back with Pagon to base to pick up some items. Bluestone Brooch finished up for the mid laner, and the arrow picked up for Panda Cat. So starter items are now online for both of the hunters of the Jade Dragons. But it's the Bolts who have established the aggressive position around the pit. But now, as soon as the Dragons are stepping up, the Bolts have backed themselves off.
Yeah, it looks like there will just be a 5v5 at this Fire Giant. No one is going to send those trebuchets. There's no real advantage right now map-wise. It's more so just the XP, and PBM is trying to find something.
PBM does get Silent Spirit Ball just off the mark. Stun does hit Fine OK, but a Riptide a little off the mark from Jake to pull Fine OK back in. PBM really the only one eating the brunt of the damage. Lasbra has stuck himself out into the lane, used the Lord of the Afterlife to get away from the Dragons, but PBM finally has gone in the River's Rebuke, and a massive Kraken only will hit Jake in this instance, and everybody on the Bolts are doing just fine. The Dragons actually they have no ults left. I looked over and saw one, but that's just Pagon on the Uller.
Yeah, the Jade Dragons used pretty much everything there for not a big return. It was pretty much just awesome Jake Shell, and Haddix used it. Yeah, there's not much really used at that point now. They're trying to find more engage. PBM is going to jump in here.
Will jump, won't find the taunt on to Lasbra. Meanwhile, the Bolts have healed themselves up a bit. It's only Jake who is rather low for this team. Still pepper damage from Pagon up against Venenu in that fight, in this elongated dance around this Fire Giant.
Yeah, it's just going to be the reset here. I think the Jade Dragons really wanted to force Lasbra's ult and then find the kill after the fact, but he's just pretty tanky and able to disengage so well. If the Kraken doesn't land, I don't see the Jade Dragons finding too much success in these fights right now, and it just was a little bit off of being a massive ult, right? If that hit like 3 or 4 targets, I think the fight could just be over and Fire Giant's going down, but really only Jake was stuck in it after the fact, and having Shell for your squad is also going to help out, and Barra and Jake are able to just, you know, cushion some of that damage when it does go through. Looking at the gold and the kills, pretty much about even, right? Just the kills and the gold a little bit in favor of the Olympus Bolts, but Relics vastly favoring the Jade Dragons right now. Barracuda had to use both in that engagement, and Jake Shell's down, where Jade Dragons pretty much have everything except for PBM's Blink Up.
And PBM's got 2 other ways to get into the fight if need be, so lacking one of his 3 mobilities, not the end of the world for this Cirquet. He's been playing this god very aggressively this game to try and find any small pick that he can for his team. Fire Giant started up by the Dragons. Don't imagine this is a commit, though. As you can see, everybody's already pulled away from it. PBM will eat a stun, but he'll be just fine on the Cirquet. Lasbra has finally regrouped with the Bolts to join up for this potential 5v5.
And they're already backing off here. Lasbra isn't really on a character that can sneak around the back and nuke a lot of damage. He's going to have a lot of just vastly auto attack damage, so if he can get close to someone. They did send the Trebuchet off, and left tier 1 tower is going to go down. I was wondering when the Bolts were going to send theirs. We will not see a Trebuchet duel. That tier 2 tower could be in danger the longer that gets the push for free. So the Olympus Bolts will just sort of back up now. They're not really, they're not forced to commit to this Fire Giant, but they will be losing a little bit of gold on that left side lane.
Fine, okay, we'll just clear up the right side while the Bolts continue this group up on the upper right. This gives the Dragons a little bit of time to start going for this Primal Fury. Panda and Sam will be able to trade that one back and forth to take minimal damage from it as they can, but this now makes it easier for the Dragons to try and push towards this fire, and now knowing that there's at least one person missing from this fight, the Bolts try and get aggressive, but it's Haddix who eats the brunt of the damage, half HP on the Ama.
Yeah, he's going to have to back up. He does have Death's Embrace, so he will be able to heal up pretty easily on these minions. And at this point, the Tier 2 tower of the Olympus Bolts is getting targeted by the Trebuchet. So I'm just keeping my eyes on left lane right now. That's really the only action we're seeing, is that Tier 2 tower is slowly going to get taken down. No one from the Bolts or the Dragons feel confident enough to pull this enhanced Fire Giant almost. It's going to be in 2 minutes. It'll be leveling up and get even harder and be worth much more to try and kill. But as I said, the Olympus Bolts don't really feel like they're pressured to pull this. Venenu is very close to being able to upgrade that starter item. Pagon's been level 20 for quite some time, whereas Ven has been sitting right at that cusp, but you're not getting any farm when you're just sitting around the Fire Giant pit.
No, Jake Riptide's 2 of them in, though, for the Bolts. PBM very low as he has to jump on away. Haddix goes in with the ultimate. Pyro goes to the Bolts. Sam is stunned out, has to use the beads to get himself away. Lasbra stunned out. The Kraken goes through, but it's not going to find many value targets. Lasbra still chasing through against all 5 of the Dragons, who have been able to squeak themselves through a tiny, tiny corridor to get out.
Pagon is full HP and full mana, though, and has a lot of range onto this Uller. Everyone else is essentially dead on the Jade Dragons. They have to back up and reset, but it looks like Final K isn't too worried about this chase down either. The Olympus Bolts, pretty healthy and didn't use too many ultimates, but the Warriors, that's what they really want. That's their engage. Dazzling Offensive and Lord of the Afterlife are down. And so that's going to spend the end of that fight. Both teams have to go for a reset, and we're back to doing the same thing we will be. And I do think this will be Enhanced Fire Giant. Only 50 seconds before that will happen, and Barracuda has to send that Trebuchet on the left side of the map to maybe answer back some of the farm that the Jade Dragons Treb was able to get.
I mean, it got almost both towers in that left lane. That last one for the Tier 2 standing on maybe like one Trebuchet fireball away from going down, one Hunter shot from going out. But the Dragons were able to pick up another Trebuchet of their own during all of this waiting all around, all of this farming that they've kind of delayed near this Fire Giant, so they'll have one pushing up mid. Probably won't get a whole lot of value in mid comparatively to that left side of the map where the Bolts have started their push on their own Trebuchet. Lasbra will clear out the mids, while the rest of his team will have to defend back up against their back camps, waiting for the Dragons to either step forward or pull this Fire Giant.
Yeah, it really seems like the Bolts are content with saying, hey, if you want to pull this, we have Circle of Protection. We're not going to commit any of our HP to this Fire Giant. We're going to wait for you. PBM, though, gets a beautiful double taunt.
But going to be out for now. Whirlpool will at least slow down the Bolts. PBM will walk himself away for the time. Fire Giant was started up by the Dragons, but immediately will be stopped right after. And Charlie, we're right back to where we've been for the last, what, 8-9 minutes of play of both these teams dancing around the Fire Giant.
Yeah, I really don't know what it would take for the Bolts to feel confident pulling this. They have great amounts of shred as long as Haddix is able to auto-attack it 3 times. They have great confirm with Circle of Protection, but they don't want to try and 50-50. There is a Kraken on the map. There is a lot of CC with PBM, and Pagon has been pretty on point with these axes thus far as well. So in a situation like that, they don't want to deal with it. Panda Cat will just split push left. Remember, he can join the fight whenever he wants with that ultimate. Someone is going to have to stop him once he gets to the Phoenix, and that's going to be the go button.
Haddix going to go in right away. Finds PBM, but another Whirlpool will keep the Dragons from having to worry too much about the Bolts. Panda Cat can continue his split push on the left side for as long as necessary. The Bolts will try and force something by grabbing the Enhanced Fire Giant up. Already half HP, Final K in the wall. PBM goes to the back line, pops the Young, and then ended up grabbing Venenu all the while. The PBM is being accosted by the Fire Giant, but the rest of the Bolts starting to fall low. The damage from all of these carries is starting to pile in, and it's Pagon who finally strikes first in the fight. Awesome Jake, the first one out, but Barracuda got Panda Cat, massive Kraken will end up tagging Barracuda, who lands in the worst spot possible, right in front of Pagon for the double.
And it looks like Haddix and Lasbra are the only ones left, and the Jade Dragons are trying to retreat here. They don't have the health bars to pull this Enhanced Fire Giant. They have the DPS, but if they back quickly, they still should be able to pull this with relative ease. Beautiful fight in by the Jade Dragons there, and that Kraken was also massive. Ven had a good turnaround. I think that probably would never be a kill on the Panda Cat unless he saved that ult for the exact time, and now it's up to the 2 warriors of the Olympus Bolts to try and delay, try and stall as long as possible for the Jade Dragons to not get this Enhanced Fire Giant.
These 2 warriors were able to keep the Dragons away from a Fury earlier on. They were able to get a couple of kills on Final K, but now they've got to get a near wipe up against the Jade Dragons to stop this Enhanced Fire Giant from going down. Haddix being zoned away by Final K, who is doing a lot of damage back. PBM jumps in, finds the taunt on the Lasbra, gets the beads from the Osiris and throws them right back to the rest of the team. A leap in by Pagon, and some good damage from the Hunter will take them down. It's fine, okay. Securing the kill on Lasbra and putting the Dragons up yet another.
But Ven, Awesome Jake, and Barracuda are already back. Barracuda will be able to fly in very quickly, and you do have the Kraken pretty soon as well. The Jade Dragons don't really want to pull this right away. They're still Final K playing zone duty. Anyone looking for some CC right now, one more pick could mean the Enhanced Fire Giant.
Haddix gets stunned out, takes half of his health and more, and is forced to dash away as soon as he can find a way out of that whirlpool. And it's going to take a lot to sustain this on, especially with Final K peppering tons of damage back in. Final K finds the pick on Venenu. PBM will get the airstrike out of Barracuda, and the Dragons will get the Enhanced Fire Giant.
That was so much damage from Final K just through the wall. That is just unimmutable damage unless you have Aegis or unless you're going to drop the Circle of Protection. There's no way Ven's able to survive that one, and he goes down. So now the Jade Dragons are just going to be pushing down right side. They don't care about the left Phoenix. They're looking to get as much as they can while Lasbra is still dead for 5 seconds.
Still going to be some time before the Bolts can make a full defense up against these birds. They're going to have to get rid and just kiss this right Phoenix goodbye. No chance they can defend. 25 seconds till Venenu is back up. And being honest with you, Trelly, Venenu has not really done anything in this game at all. He's not been able to find circle of protections that have been meaningful to the team. He's just been getting blown up team fight after team fight. And it really feels like it's starting to show in these latter fights.
Yeah, it just seems like the way the Jade Dragons have drafted, it's hard to get to the carries. And once the carries are on top of you, it's a little bit too much damage for you to survive. Even though there's a lot of HP, we see 2 Heartseekers come through. The crits, they don't really care. Panicat's damage, he doesn't care about how much HP you have. He's going to crit you nonetheless. And we've seen just how much damage Pagon is able to do as well. So by the time that the carries do get to the back line, you don't have enough time to really blow through your abilities. There still is a pretty decent chance for the Olympus Bolts to be able to forge a defense on these Phoenixes. Only the right one is down, which is not going to be the biggest deal when it comes time for another Enhanced Fire Giant defense if that does come to that point. Now the Jade Dragons have about 2 minutes and 20 seconds to figure out how they want to split apart the map here and go for these Phoenixes. Remember, Panicat can essentially split push whenever he wants and join the fight. He can drag someone over from mid lane. He could push the lanes in right as well and just say, hey, we don't want to take a fair 5v5 fight. We want to wait for those fire minions in right and split apart the Olympus Bolts. This left Phoenix, though, they seem to have their eye on.
PBM, the only tanky person on this Dragons team, the only person who's built any kind of defense. So he'll have to be the one to initiate under the Phoenix if they want to get a fight going. Final K can stand in the wall and throw some damage out, and will find some good damage up against Ven, and Jake will he find even more with the scream through the wall. Jake is just standing inside of everything and is already down to a quarter HP. The shells have all been popped to try and keep him alive. Barra's still holding on to Iz. A Riptide is good. Barracuda might not be able to find a way out. Does get the airstrike just in time, but the left side Phoenix is already gone. Lasbra has found Final K in the back line, will find a leap out, and a good Spirit Ball by Ven will finally hold back the Dragons, but it's not for long because Sam has found a double Kraken in the back line. Barracuda, half HP as soon as he walks back in the fight. PBM dashing in, finds a taunt up against Ven, gets the beads from the Bolts mid laner, and the Dragons, aside from Sam, healthy enough to pull this Titan. The Jade Dragons have stormed in. They have taken game number 1, and not much left for the Bolts to do to hold back this defense, as Dragons will take it.
That was just so much damage from Final K through the wall. Lasbra is able to go to the back line and find that pick, but once you've committed so much to just one kill, everyone on the Jade Dragons were able to do just about that much damage as well. Pagon, pretty sure goes undying that game, like 6-0 or something. Beautiful game out of him in that mid lane on the Uller. It was just greatly played by the Jade Dragons once they got that Enhanced Fire Giant.
All right, so I'm going to make predictions for the draft, Charlie, or maybe at least things I don't want to see.
Okay.
Number 1, no more Kleena.
Okay.
I'm tired of it, man.
Fair.
I'm tired of Final K dropping Veils in the middle of a... No, that's the only one. That's the only one I'm counting. That's it. No Kleena.
No Uller?
I don't care about the Uller as much. You can.
About the Uller.
that's fair. But do you see how much damage that he did to Jake just by himself?
You're definitely right. He built full damage. He was able to take someone out of the fight essentially, and then Lasbra's like, "Hey, I'm gonna give everything I have to get this kill on you." It worked out because he wasn't tanky, but the damage was done.
Damage was done. Damage was too much, and the Olympus Bolts are gonna have to regroup. Can they pull it back in game number 2? We'll find out right after this.
Hey, wait, what did it win?
You win the respect.
You're telling me an alien wore this?
Perfect. Okay, that was a good cut.
Messaging him to mute.
The best graphics you really need, Ultra, of course, and I can probably watch a stream on the side.
Content's gonna look good. Pretty good, pretty good.
Swinging my fist, tension rising, but no part of it. Nice to meet ya, been called a misfit. No need to fake it, we all got some shit. Yeah, you check for my vitals, think I need revival. Broken down and fading, my heart keeps breaking.
Thanks for that Prime Gaming sub. We see you.
Well, the Dragons kick this one off the same way they did yesterday, 1-0 versus the Bolts. And that means the Bolts are now one game away from elimination. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you and shout-outs to Prime Gaming for being the title sponsor here in Season 9 for the SBL. Of course, that is including Masters. You just saw all of the fantastic games that you can get on Prime. But let me go ahead and tell you that you can get a little bit more out of it, right? And make sure that you get the most out of your Prime by getting all of the exclusive things it has to offer. This is not just the free games that you're going to get every month, and also the game content that you're going to get every month, also the free sub that you get every month, as well as the free Amazon delivery, as well as a ton of other stuff. Too much to list. So if you aren't a Prime Gaming sub now, fix that. You should go ahead and be one. And again, thank you to Prime Gaming for being the title sponsor this year. And score, it's row one more time. And this is where things get a little hairy for the Bolts. Well, I guess it already got a little hairy for the Bolts. This is where it's do or
Now it's
die
rough. Yeah.
for them. That game feels like it starts off a little more consistent for them, but it just slowly but surely the Dragons create enough space that eventually it comes down to a few fights and they just win.
They force it into the position where they are just 5v5 facing each other, and it's just Mike hunting for an engagement on somebody in the backline ready to follow up. And here we see Krakens on, this is any target. This could be literally anybody. That's probably the tankiest member on the Bolts team, and just completely blown up by that Kraken there. And they, in this team fight just before this, they make space for a split second. FineOK makes some great space using the cleaner ultimates through the wall and behind the Phoenix, and they get that Phoenix in 2 seconds again. And then Pagon just throw the ultimate aggression in the mid lane as well. This Ula pick, perfect for him.
Yeah, it turns out Pagon's really good at Smite. In case you're just now catching up to that, that has just been the consistency so far this year, and I think you get to see it in some of these late game fights. Just so much that can go right for them, and whether it's the autos, the axes, where they happen to be, and sometimes even saving teammates there. I just think it's so impressive to watch how these two teams have gone up against each other, and unfortunately right now for specifically the Bolts, you end up in moments like this. Bera's got a massive lead, and then Panda just wins it. Well, barely. I'm going to call that a win. Look, if I'm down half HP to your full HP and I kill you when you kill me, that's a win to me.
Fair enough. He's happy to take those fights at any point.
That was his only kill, too.
Yeah, I mean, he's much like Zapman. You just get in there and fight when he can. But, that Chernobog being first picked and having great value in all of these games so far today and yesterday as well. Just having the early rotations, you're able to buy your team, take it to the late game. And then when you get to late game with 4 carries like they have, it's kind of insane. They're just able to pick off whoever's in front of them. It doesn't matter how tanky they are. Jake is squishy compared to this comp. Had it squishy somehow. And even an Osiris is just butter to the team comp that Jade Dragons are building.
Yeah, they burned through it almost no issue and a lot of those team fights, which was very impressive. Again, not always without fault. You saw some of the crit shots from Bera hit hard, but it feels like the only way to beat overwhelming damage is with overwhelming damage. Yeah. And so maybe that's the option. If the Dragons go to something similar, maybe the Bolts make that kind of change. And you can see, though, the Dragons right now are full in conversation. The Bolts booth looked a little quiet, which admittedly might just mean that Bera is talking at the time, or some voice, I was going to say, from above. But as of right now, we're going back into it. Dodgy, Nox, third ban last time was Artemis for the Dragons, and then it was Mercury, Kepri, and the Amus and Cobb for the Bolts. We'll see if they continue on that route. And so far, everything's similar.
Yeah, I thought the bans on both sides were good. It's just Jade Dragons playing this certain style of draft, and Bolts just trying to play their tried and true draft in a new meta. And I don't want to say it's not working, because that was a relatively close game. It was very competitive. It was up until the last game and the last couple of fights that Jade Dragons were able to win. It could have gone either way, so they did a good job playing against this team comp, and so far they're just running it back. A Chernobog first pick once again.
And honestly, if you're the Dragons, outside of the game being maybe longer than you would have liked, not much that you need to change, right? I mean, maybe you can clean up some play on field, but as far as the draft goes, it proved itself. And they've been willing to go back to it. It was Chernobog, Poseidon, Uller, and then their bottom two were Serket and Kleena. And so I guess at this point, it's just playing the game of how much goes the same.
Death?
Immediately, something's going to change. The Bolts take the Kleena away. And this is a brilliant flex pick as well, because it can kind of go anywhere.
It is,
well,
yeah.
Three places.
I don't think Ven really plays it in mid too much. I don't imagine they're going to put it in jungle. So I think Haddix will just take it again, especially after what we've just seen FineOK do with that god as well. I'm actually surprised by Jade Dragons not first picking it there. I didn't think the Chernobog was super impactful, even though I've talked about how good that god is right now. I didn't think he had a major impact on that game, whereas the Kleena, for example, was, in my opinion, the MVP of that game. So I'm surprised to see them give it up to Bolts, but maybe they have a strategy for it. It seems like FineOK, no urgency there, doesn't need to tell his team that he wants to first pick it.
Chernobog, Poseidon, this was Uller last time, and it's kind of hard. I want to say, what do you change? Why would you change it? But Pagon has been playing this Uller so well. Like, even when they lost earlier, it looked good. It's just the Titans looked better. And so I think this is going to be a good pick for them.
It's the Bolts that need to change, right? They're the ones with their backs up against the wall. They are the ones that need to adjust to this meta that the Jade Dragons are bringing to the battleground. And they just run it back. Jade Dragons said, you know what, that might have been a close game, but we get to play our style. Bolts will switch it up a little bit. They'll go Morrigan. That might be maybe some early action. They did have a lead earlier in this last game, so maybe they want to snowball that more. The cleaner could help with that. The Morrigan certainly could.
Now, here's maybe a weird question. It might be a bad question. I guess we'll find out based on whether or not the answer is good. But Bolts, and I just kind of alluded to it, but I said it felt like the only way to beat Overwhelming Power was with Overwhelming Power. Do you think that's like a route they could go? Like instead of going for a traditional front line, following and doing maybe an assassin or something over there that's going to give them a little more punch?
Well, I think a little adjustment they could make is Haddox, normally when he plays this cleaner, he'll go for the Soul Eater into like a breastplate and a Genji's Guard, so semi-tanky, decent damage, whereas FinoK went full assassin damage. Yeah. So maybe that's an adjustment where he gets that offensive, like you're saying, Haddox gets more damage for his team and adjusts to the meta in that regard, especially just being inspired by what FinoK was able to do in that last game. And then, with the Morrigan, you see, well, can't beat him, join him kind of thing. You're like, you've got the strong gods, I'll take them too. All
right, hear me out. This one is me standing out on a limb that is so frail that I'm afraid I will. I'm not afraid. I'm already falling. The limb is broken. It was memed, and we haven't seen it in a long time. Can tier support for Awesome Jake be the thing to rally behind?
I loved it when he played it. It was really, really enjoyable to watch when I coached them, but I just don't think it's been able to work.
It's just not the thing.
No. When we played it back then, it was because dual lane pressure was so important. These days, really all you get from dual lane pressure is a couple extra harpies. It's not even, you wouldn't even add it up to a level advantage at that point. Whereas, if you're going to play tier into a Poseidon, that's hard. It's even difficult to hit Uller. He can hit that axe if you're trying to fearless towards him. He can jump away. And then Chernobog, also a very immobile god that's hard to get on with the tier. So I don't think it's great here. I'd love to see something spicy like it. Hopefully they have something in the tank, but I like your train of thought in general.
Yeah, just get him onto something different, but maybe not exactly that pick. Oh, man. I've missed the tier support. But admittedly, what we saw like twice, I think he's played it twice. He's had some fun things over there. It's been a little while.
But it's surprising that we're talking. I mean, it's been 2 years since then, and we're still talking about that pick when something like Yamoja is open, and we're just like, well,
oh, wow.
It's like Yamoja doesn't seem to be working. So you sure you want it? We could go to something else, and it's crazy that it's not how far Yamoja has fallen. It's just how much the meta has shifted around them, and I guess how well prepared Jade Dragons have been to play into this draft. I think Circuit last game was quite good into Yamoja in particular, so Bolts have banned this away, but that leaves the Capri's banned, but that leaves the Ymir open. A big one for Jade Dragons there.
The Bolts, lo and behold, are not going to go any of the more outrageous routes
but away
that I
Yamoja.
keep trying to mentally push them to. But yeah, it is going to be away from the Yamoja. Xing Chen is what they lock in, which brings a very fantastic scenario for the Dragons. It's not often that you get to choose between Ymir and Yamoja, but after what we've seen, I think last set where it was banned both at the top by the Titans, Mike can get whatever he wants.
Yeah, we can put ourselves in the shoes of Mike. So far what he wants, the core of what he wants from his god is just he wants instant initiation. When an enemy god comes around a corner and his backline is behind him, I want to stun or a setup on whoever's in front of me and let the team kill them. He could do that on Fafnir. He could do it on Ymir. I don't think Yamoja is that quick. Her range, her engage is normally more long range and just spread out with the walls, for example. So I don't think Yamoja is actually perfect for that playstyle, which is, again, crazy that we're looking away from Yamoja in this meta.
Well, they're still hovering. They've got a minute of bank time, and honestly, they could burn all of it. They might know what these top or bottom two picks are going to be. It's just trying to figure out. It's going to be Fafnir locked in. Mike wasn't too happy with his hammers yesterday. It still ended up winning them a game, though. So pretty much if you win the game and you don't like your performance and you go back to it, the only place to go from there, I guess, is up. I guess you can go down. You can just lose. But I don't know. I have some confidence in this.
Yeah, I don't think his Fafnir play was even bad. It's just really easy to notice. Like, if they're playing a style of comp, whereas if we hit hammer, get kill, he's going to notice it when he doesn't hit the hammer, right? But on the ones that he does, it's an immediate kill. Xing Chen maybe being a little bit more tanky towards that as the double jump, able to CC immune that Fafnir, but Fafnir not threatened by Xing Chen at all. So I think we're going to see Jade Dragons on the offense here.
With 3 hunters, a Poseidon in the jungle again, they want to play the same way that they have been. Again, maybe it's not 12 kills on their side by 10 minutes in, but at the end of the day, they're the ones that have just so much power and a lot of aggression. Set is going to be the lock-in here for Lasbra. And so now this is the full Bolts draft. This is what their tournament life depends on. Do you think it gives them enough?
Well, enough, I'm not sure. But
yeah, enough is always hard.
There is reason behind it. I think Lasbra had a very good game on set earlier in this tournament. I think he started out 6-0. I think they actually lost that game in the end, but he had a very breakout game. On set, you ended up with a double set with the Morrigan, right? Yeah. Or a double Xing Chen ultimate. So there's a lot of potential there. If Cleaner can just make some space, get some poke on any of those 4 backlines and start something big, then Bolts could really dash in and run away with a team fight. But if they can't find that, if they're just waiting around, dancing around a fire giant, then eventually Mike is going to find that hammer. So it's kind of a matter of time. It's just a matter of how they handle Mike's engage. If he misses, great. If he hits a hammer, be careful.
Yeah, because more than likely the Dragons are going to play in a way where if hammer hit, then kill.
Yeah.
And that is deadly for a hefty majority of the Bolts. Like Kleena, if you're lucky, you might be able to get to the wall fast enough. Jing Wei's sometimes safe, but if stunned, probably dead. Yeah. And Set, has to get in there. So Xing Chen may be the only one who can live through all of that. But it is to be said the other way around, and we got to see it towards the end. But now you've got 2 assassins. You've got Jing Wei that we saw could hit really hard. Morrigan, when not transformed, in the right scenarios, hits incredibly hard. Yeah. But when transformed, I mean, you've got 3, 4 hunters, I guess, in the game that you can choose from. Another mage that has a really big team fight ultimate. Sure. So there's a lot that I feel like at least Vin has opened himself up to, and that's where a lot of this matchup I think is really dependent. We highlight Pagon at the end of last game and at the end of a lot of games. Yeah. I feel like if Vin can pop off here, then that could really stabilize things for the Bolts.
And it's just another win conditions for the Bolts as well. There's not only just waiting around to get hammered and hope you can make a counterplay, but the important thing is, like, let's say Jade gets stunned out by a hammer, they're going to full commit on him to try to blow him up. Well, okay, that's Lasbra and Venenu's opportunity to go in and dive deep to try to essentially peel for Jake by using their damage and trying to kill the enemy backline. So that's a way they can play these team fights. It just, anytime Mike looks for something, that's their opening to their backline. So if they're not too careful, although Jade Dragon's a very fast backline, hard to catch. Shibulanke, I would say, maybe the easiest target. But if Set's going in and then they turn off the lights, it's so much harder for Lasbra to do his job.
That's where that Shibulanke, it's so interesting to see him come through. Like, I guess the longer the games go, more than likely you'll start to see some of those late games. Like, you have to notice like the Kali's, your Mercuries. Shibulanke is back on that list. So he's going to be a danger for the Bolts. It's do or die right now. Can they bring it back in Game 2?
Olympus Bolts have to find a win here. Otherwise, their tournament life is over, and the Jade Dragons move on to the final day of play. The Jade Dragons, with that, are now 1 game away from moving on to the second day. We get the triple Hunter comp, plus this Poseidon, and then a single Guardian from the Dragons. It's worked many times for them before, Trelly, but with what the Bolts have drafted, is it something that can win here in Game 2?
I definitely like the adaptations that the Bolts have made. I think that this is their whole comp sort of relies on how much value can Ven get out of his ultimate, obviously. Personally, I think double set can be very solid. Usually Lasbra goes in, gets the relics, get the escapes, then Ven can go in after, or vice versa, whichever one you want to do. You can turn into Chernobog and have some global presence. You can say, oh, you're ulting over there to make it an unfair fight. Well, now I'm on the way too, and now I can even those odds. You could also simply turn into Poseidon and say, now I've got better confirm than you on the objective. There's a lot of different things that the Morrigan provides. But one thing that it doesn't provide is too much safety right now, so I think Ven's going to have to sit back for a little bit. You're not going to want to fight up against an Uller right now in the mid lane.
No, fighting against Uller, probably not your best choice just in general. As the duel lane goes through, the supports are trying to bully the carries from being able to take a whole lot of poke. Barracuda is eating a lot right back. PBM, plus the help of the minions, are putting Barracuda in low HP. Though he's got a few potions that he can take himself back up to get that HP. Mid lane, Lasbra walks up and immediately has to use beads. A single axe toss from Pagon is just that threatening.
Yeah, so much clear that they have with this Uller and Poseidon. Having more abilities than everyone is certainly going to help you out, and right now Pagon's got 4 at level 2, so it's going to be hard to out-confirm and out-clear pressure in that lane, I should say. As long as those axes are connecting, you're going to be getting relics, but looking at Panda Cat's start, he's not going for Gilded Arrow. He's not really worried about the gold. He's going for that leather cal. He wants a little bit of lifesteal attack speed, and maybe as the game goes on, he upgrade, maybe some movement speed. It's going to be very hard to catch Shivalanke once the lights go out and he gets that movement speed on top of the build.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen the leather cowl make its way back through. For the longest time, we had the Death's Toll rush with the Crusher, and now we kind of evolved to this Gilded Arrow meta. So nice seeing this item make its way back towards one of these hunters, and this time around Panda Cat. Though he is still up against Gilded Arrow, Devour's Gauntlets for Barracuda. Panda Cat not going to go for that initial lifesteal start. It seems he may be building towards Transcendence.
Yeah, or the dominant start that we saw a little bit. Either one could be an option. I think Transcendence just makes sure that his abilities are chunking. You want those poison darts, and Rising Jaguar got the buff, so when you use poison darts into Rising Jaguar, it's going to be doing more damage as well. So we'll have to see how Panda Cat uses the optimizations. Then for Soccer, I was going to say he's going for a gank, but that's a level 3 Poseidon. He's just helping. He's sapping farm at this point. There's no kill potential for him.
Fighting for the blue buff, though, could be the call, as it's the Hunter Mage versus Double Assassin. Final K is trying to keep Haddix from getting in. Sam holding on to this buff as much as he can. The blue does get stolen away by Haddix, and Sam put down to half HP.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Final K has Gilded Arrow, has some health. He clears the auto attack. He clears with auto attacks, I should say. So he's not worried about the blue buff. He just wanted that golden XP, and he will be not allowed to have that this time around. Nice to see both junglers around that soul lane, though, looking for some potential ganks. A lot of beads on the map at the moment, but it looks like Polar Bear Mike has actually started with the Ankh. He doesn't want to worry about any of that HP, any of that healing, so he wants to shut that down immediately. Not too much right now, really just Lasbra. You don't want that Kingslayer being able to pop off in your backline, so I imagine PBM looking for the hammer into just Ankh every time Lasbra wants to go to the backline.
Bit of a stalemate in the dual lane, but you know, some of the thanks to the change-ups that have been made, you know, these hunters aren't losing their purple buff very often. It's mostly just, do you want to get that timer on a little bit sooner, get those little bits of XP. We did see Jake steal away the smalls, the minis from the purple earlier on. Mike was trying to do the same up against Barracuda. And now the purple buff is finally worn off of the waist of the hunters. So now would be the perfect opportunity to go pick up those buffs. For now, the Bolts do have the pressure. They've got Sam rotating over for the Dragons. Barracuda caught out. Kraken and take it down, and it could be a double as Awesome Jake falls and the Dragons strike twice.
San Francisco did that last time. He did that exact play. It didn't work out because PBM missed the Cobra's kiss, but this time around, man, that was a beautiful Kraken from San Francisco. And unfortunate, Barra did beat a little bit late, was not able to get out of there, and Awesome Jake wasn't level 5, so had no way to get out of that one either. Beautiful play, and now one kill did go the way of San Francisco, but Panda Cat was able to tag that one as well. That's going to go pretty far in this lane. Jingwei usually is going to lose that boxing match anyways if she's going into Dev Gauntlets up against whatever tree Panda Cat wants to build into with this Charged Morningstar. So it's going to be hard to outlive this boxing match no matter what, and especially Panda Cat has a kill under his belt now.
Well, it's also good for the Dragons that Mike is able to hit these hammers. Makes it a little bit easier for them as these team fights and these early ganks go through. All jokes aside, you know, we know how well Mike can perform on this god, but a little bit of fun to be had with some of the tweets that he's put out about this god and his performance on it in the past. But for now, the Jade Dragons with their 2-0 lead up have about a 700 gold lead over the Bolts, and more aggression by this blue buff. But this time it will go to Final K.
Yeah, Haddix doesn't have too much steal potential there. Was more so just looking to be annoying and try and do some damage. I don't think he even tried to throw too much at that blue buff, but he's getting a little bit of pressure in lane. Chernobog, not one to look for a 1v1 up against Kleena. You know, if San Francisco comes through with the Kraken, maybe we'll look to see a little bit of aggression, but we just haven't seen too much fight from a Chernobog really ever. He'll say, hey, I'll ult over if you get something down. Like, maybe I'll fly in and have a fun time, but in lane, I'm going to be sitting at my tower line or underneath the tower and just trying to get these Dev Gauntlets. Obviously, Haddix is one for the Soul Eater, so he's just going to be pushing in waves and stealing away farm right now. Not going to be too far ahead. The net worth chart's only being about like 15 gold, so both of these solo laners are just clearing and going back and clearing and going back, that sort of thing. But I was going to say, PBM is very deep in the enemy jungle.
Well, he finds a hammer through the wall up against Lasbra, trying to slow down this assassin from being able to get his jungle farm. But now PBM is surrounded, does have the leap to get over the wall, something that the rest of the squad can't really do as easily. Obviously, Haddix could go through the wall, but using the cooldown to chase out somebody he probably isn't going to be able to kill doesn't seem to be worth his time. PBM, more than anything, just playing the stall game on the enemy.
Yeah, that's just, I mean, PBM's trying to steal away as much farm as possible and or slowing them down. The slower you are to your camps, to your rotations, if those camps timers aren't on top of each other, this is what happens. It looks like Sanford Soccer is able to go to this purple buff because his purple buff is not quite up yet. They have the time to go for this invade. They have the time to deny you from farm and get it for themselves. The Jade Dragons are just trying to push this lead.
Dragons are able to steal the offering off the side of the Bolts jungle. Won't be able to really take this purple. One good body block from Jake should mean that Lasbra cannot grab this one away. Purple buff is secured by the Olympus Bolts, so they won't lose out on that. PBM will be chased down, though, by Lasbra and Jake. That gets Draconic Transformation out. Panicat used the ultimate to buy some distance. That way Mike can find a path out. But that was Kingslayer used during all that. And a Kraken onto Awesome Jake, a collapse by the Jade Dragons, and Pandacat takes him down with the Poison Dart.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Jake didn't have the ultimate there, didn't have the leaps available. That Kraken was just enough to make sure that he goes back to base. And I thought maybe Lasper was going to try and chase that one down, but when you don't have the vision, when you don't have too much confirmation, fine, okay. Getting very low here, that could be enough.
One more basic is needed, but no, Haddix can't find it. Instead, eats too many tower shots, has to leave the fight. Venenu transforms into a clean of his own to make sure to keep the mid laners at bay. But Final K playing with fire. Luckily, he kept the oven mitts on.
Yeah, nice. I don't think I've ever heard that one, so I had to double take. But it was very close. Just not enough damage. Maybe if Haddix had a fully stacked Soul Eater or had backed and purchased up this Tier 2 Transcendence, Final K could have been falling there. Just a lot of damage coming out of this clean. If you're trying to out-confirm for your blue buff, you're going to eat the full brunt of that poke, whereas all Chernobog's really bringing to the table is the burst from his 1-2 combo and then some auto attack. So I imagine Haddix will continue to out-pressure in that lane until a little bit more damage is built. This isn't the normal build that we see from these hunters at Final K's going either. Obviously, Panicat's doing something new, and Final K, it might be just going for chin size here.
It could be a very early rush towards that, which is a little strange considering that Jake is like the only person on the team who's probably going to build any kind of real defense. I imagine that Crit would be just fine to go here, but at the same time, we have been seeing a more so of a mixture of those Crit and Kin builds in the middle. I mixed up both of them into one.
Yeah, it also could be Executioner. There is 3 hunters on this team, and if Final K's ulting in and shredding protections, then you should be able to find a little bit of aggression here. Haddix is going to have to put on the juke shoes here for this crowd. He's invisible!
Okay, I can't fully fault Sam for that because he literally could not see Haddix, but from any other perspective, that just looks like
camera. He's laughing.
He's just like, oh, well, guys, I couldn't see him. What do you want me to do about it? Maybe wait like another second and a half and then you can?
I love that we got to see his face cam after the fact. Like, just so you guys know, I could not see him. Like, it wasn't like he just Haddix hit the blind and then just did a little circle, and Sam's like, surely he's hiding over here. Beautiful play, and Haddix is able to get out there. If that Kraken did connect, probably would have just got the beads and could have opened up another gank opportunity later. I just don't think with just Doom Orb you're able to blow through all of Cleanest damage right now. Either way, funny play, and now we're back to the old farm game. 3-0 for the Jade Dragons currently, and about a 1.5k gold lead as Pandacat and Barracuda play Ring Around the Rosie here, trying to see if they can get a little bit of poke onto each other.
You know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And in Sam's case, you miss 100% of the shots you do take when you can't see them at all. But all jokes aside, Sam should be fine for now. He'll just go back to his farm game, wait another 40 seconds or whatnot until that Kraken is back up. And then can try again in solo, or maybe make his way over towards mid and try and get some pressure onto Venenu or Lasbra. Pagon is firing auto attacks, knowing that Jake is there, but Jake's not going to walk forward. He's just going to keep watching those arrows fall in front of him.
He's just standing there menacingly. It looks like Awesome Jake will try to go for the wraparound here, find any sort of relic on a Pagon. He's got plenty of mana here, and a leap would get him out of harm's way, and I don't think Ven has too much chase down, though.
Axe Toss does hit Jake, but anyway, he's able to find some decent poke there with the help of his support. Pandacat taking another 1v1 trade, pops the ultimate, gets Barracuda to fly himself on out with that agility. And again, Pandacat taking these low health trades, almost winning that one out. We will say a win for at least forcing Barracuda to get away.
Yeah, Barra's able to hold on to his ult, so I would call that a dub. As long as he's not relicking or ulting, just a little bit of your HP is not going to be the biggest concern, especially because you're Jing Wei. You can back and fly back in and say, ooh, that poke was real sick, but here I am. I'm still full HP, and you had to use your ultimate, which Darkest of Nights is going to be a great team fight ult if we saw any sort of aggression towards this Gold Fury. But more often than not, as we just saw that Pyromancer got pinged, that's usually where these teams are going to first. If you don't find a massive pick, if you don't find just like a massive advantage in the team fight, Pyromancer is usually a pretty safe pull at about 11 minutes into the game.
So we've got 3 hunters for the Dragons and 3 different build paths that are escaping here. We have Leather Cow Transcendence, Atalanta's Bow out of Panda Cat, Transcendence, Jotun's Wrath with the Bluestone out of Pagon, and then a more traditional one on the other side. Barracuda will find a way out. Poison Dart's just off the mark from Panda to find the potential killing blow up against Barracuda. So for now, Barra will be able to get back. Still holding on to his beads, too. Didn't use that relic.
Yeah, just had to use the airstrike there. Ate the full damage of the Kraken. If San Francisco had Pythags, maybe there's going to be a burst kill there. And that is what he went last time. Soul Gem usually not going to be the item here. He wants to get a little bit of aura damage for his teammates, as we see maybe a rotation over to that solo lane Pagon that San Francisco are going, but turn their eyes towards that Pyromancer. It looks a little bit more appetizing. Lasper might be able to make it in time, but Final K is also playing zone duty.
Yeah, Pyromancer will go the way of the Jade Dragons. PBM just zoning Lasbra and the rest of the team away. But PBM is now all by himself. Has the leap to get away. One veil opened up by Haddix. Jake goes in. PBM very low, but holding on to that transformation until the last moments that he can. But as soon as he lands down, he's thrown right into the wall, and it's a kill for Haddix.
Looks like Venenu will turn into Final K and ult back into this fight, but Lasper's getting very low here.
One hit's all that's needed. Pagon finds him, and now Pagon is stunned out. Used the beats, finds the leap, needs a 180 X toss, but it sets the fadeaway by Ven to take down Pagon. But watch out for Panda Cat, who's now rotated into the fight. Haddix fighting against 3, and he's not the only one that can utilize the wall. Final K keeps himself alive, and Sam finds the kill.
I'm amazed. It was just because Panda Cat got there a little bit earlier that didn't go completely in favor of the Olympus Bolts. Barracuda sort of half rotated, but then just got lost at the mid farm, realized the fight was already over, and Final K is going to go cover the left lane here. I don't think it's going to be a complete role swap. I mean, a lane swap, you should say, but Panda Cat will get the Totem of Ku and then start clearing that right lane. So Chernabog is now over here. We have to worry about a 1v1 from Final K and Barracuda. Very rare that we get to see that.
Barracuda confuses. Guys, there's a hunter here, but this isn't the same hunter that's been in my lane this whole game. When did Shibalanke look a little bit different? Final K, in all seriousness, still going for that more traditional. Maybe Final K is just the hunter for the team. He's the only one going the normal, air quotes, hunter build.
I mean, there's no Wind Demon there, so I'm not even calling it the normal build. When do you stop me if you heard this one before, because you won't stop me because you haven't.
Okay.
Final K v Barracuda 1v1. Pagon getting very low.
Pagon down to a quarter health, does have the leap to get away, and no further chase from Lasbra as the rest of the Dragons were grouped up around that mid camp to make sure that there was an escape path for their mid laner. Pagon will go back to base. Just had to use his Aegis during that. Beads were already down from the prior engagement.
Yeah, that was a lot of damage coming through. And now San Francisco just dropping the Kraken. A little bit of a miss, and will have to Beads. Awesome Jake, not going to be in trouble anymore.
That's the go button for Lasbra. Onk pots by Mike, and Lasbra will not continue the chase up to Sam. This time it's Mike transforming aggressively into the Dragon. Jake trying to jump away as fast as he can, but he gets stunned out. Sam finds Lasbra. Jake is so low, so close to going down. One more tick would have done it, but it's not enough. And the hail of arrows just off the mark. So unfortunately for the Dragons, they don't find the kill on Jake, but they do find Lasbra, and they do get a Gold Fury.
Yeah, I think they're going to be pretty happy with just finding that Gold Fury. Beautiful axe by Pagon. He's able to rotate back into that fight and stop the chase. Even if he missed that axe, San Francisco had the cutoff with that Whirlpool. Venenu had a good transformation, but he's turning into Final K more often than not. He gets the slow, and then if there's really no one to ult to, how are you going to go in aggressively with that ultimate? It's hard to chase that one down. And Lasbra is taking so much as well with the Curse Donk being popped, and he's not that tanky right now, just going full damage. He's not being able to get the full value out of this Kingslayer either. So great play by the Jade Dragons. 4K up now. They get the Gold Fury and the pick, and now they're just back to farming. San Francisco, 2-level lead in the jungle right now.
Jake wanted to steal that Scorpion away, but he was too late to the party to be able to grab that one out. PBM now running into Lasbra's jungle to try and deny this set any kind of farm. Support's just kind of playing roam duty around here. I mean, the Pyromancer is now down for about another 2 minutes. Gold Fury will be down for quite some time. Doesn't really feel like there's quite enough damage from the Dragons to maybe pull a Fire Giant just yet, unless maybe they can find a couple of picks.
Yeah, with the fact that they have all these ADZs, if no one from the Olympus Bolts showed up, they probably could do it fairly quickly, and it wouldn't be the worst play ever, but they don't have too much confirmed burst unless the Kraken is, you're like just 100%, I'm dropping this Kraken on the Fire Giant, we're not looking for a bait, I'm not going to Kraken anyone watching up, that sort of thing. Once an Executioner gets built, and I hope one of them does, because if all 3 of these hunters, none of them build Executioner, I'm just going to call them selfish.
Maybe they are going to be a little bit selfish. Final K fighting for his blue buff. Doesn't get it, but hi-rez probably won't make it out of here. The passive will not save him as one more auto puts him into death threshold, and Final K deals the final blow. 7-2. Read the kills and 5,000 gold up nearly for the Jade Dragon 16 minutes in. The 4K experience also really starting to show its way as Sam has been able to pull a pretty decent lead over in this jungle, and even PandaCat picking up a small lead over Barra.
Yeah, I don't think that Lasbra can really initiate any of these fights, so you can see San Soccer can walk up and just drop a Kraken. That's not bad, but Lasbra really can't walk into a lane aggressively and just say, I'm going to put a clone down, teleport to it, Kingslayer, and simply kill you. It's just not going to happen. I'm expecting to see more counter-aggression for the Olympus Bolts. Oh, you go in and commit a lot of damage to Awesome Jake, for example. I'm going to go in after the fact, but then probably not wanting to fight right now when Jake is literally 10 HP, and Lasbra is getting aggressed upon in his jungle as well.
Awesome Jake eating all that poke in the mid, had to force his way back to base. Lasbra comes over to the Pyromancer to try and slow down the Dragons from doing this. The Pyromancer will go to the Jade Dragons. Lasbra will find a path out, not before eating some damage out of Pagon. And hi-rez sitting in the wall will at least slow down Pagon from making it back to base, but Pagon rather healthy. He can just go ahead and farm with this jungle with PBM.
Yeah, I'm expecting to see Barracuda make some big waves once he rotates in. If you've noticed, he itemized in a way that says,
yeah,
I just want to do big damage numbers. He didn't go Silver Branch. He's up against, what, 4 squishies and a Fafnir that he doesn't want to be auto-attacking anyways, so what's the point of getting Silver Branch right now? He wants as big crit numbers as possible. He's got 3rd item Deathbringer already, and once we see this Jingwei rotate in, once we see explosive bolts getting popped, I expect to see much more damage on the side of the Olympus Bolts, but probably sitting around in this lane for a little bit. San Soccer is looking around here, though.
I was wondering if PBM was going to do this now that it's pretty much nothing but basic attack damage out here with 3 Hunters, plus a Fafnir. Belts of Frenzy immediately picked up and then upgraded all the way to Belt of the Berserker, cracking onto Barra. He's going to be able to get out thanks to the help of that ultimate. But PBM is ran and ready to go. Objectives are not safe. Now the Jade Dragons probably don't even need to get a pick like they're finding on Awesome Jake to grab an objective. They could probably just go ahead and take one if they want to, but you might as well take a life if you're able to. Jake will find a jump out, but that's not as far as he is going to get. Is to his own jungle.
Yeah, beautiful gank there on Awesome Jake. That was really aggression on the Barracuda. Then they're like, hey, we might as well. We found Jake, so we can kill him too. Tier 2 tower being looked at right now. They have the Draconic Transformation. I imagine Coerce is almost up here too, as Pagon is just playing zone duty for the Olympus Bolts Tier 2 tower. You're not allowed to help Lasbra. Stay away.
Yeah. We don't need the tank to do this. I will just be the one person. Lasbra probably can't even really take a 1v1 up against Pagon right now. He'll go ahead and proxy a couple of archers away and regroup with the team at the mid camps. Pyromancer down for a little while. Gold Fury coming back up in about 15 seconds. And I imagine with this minion wave, Jade Dragons just take the Tier 1 tower, maybe the Tier 2 if there's not a fast enough response, or they can just regroup and go ahead and take the Fury as soon as it spawns.
Yeah, they're going to be setting up for this Oni Fury here, and PBM is just going to see what he can find. And Barracuda's backing, so I think they already know that this Fury is spawning, and they're not going to be putting any attention towards it. A pick right now would be pretty disastrous. Maybe Awesome Jake's look, but that's a level 10 Xing-Tian, and by the way, Oni Fury's already gone. Looking at the damage that they have, it's just too much. A return kill onto Mike would help out a lot. He doesn't have the transformation. They're going to chase this down and immediately give up once they see Pagon.
Yep, and Mike is fine. Under the Tier 1 tower, he'll go. Half HP on the Dwarf, but he'll be able to go right back to the base and maybe finish up this 3rd item. Breastplate of Valor could be a call. Spectral Armor if he wants to deal with what crit that Barracuda does have. So let's see where he goes. It's Fire Giant by the Bolt. Half HP. Final K is here to slow them down. Lasbra's eating an insane amount of damage. The Aegis will buy Lasbra enough time. The Kraken goes through, and the Olympus Bolts do get the Fire Giant, but can they find themselves a way out of the fight? Final K has found Jake, and one more crit will take down the support.
If Ben is able to make it out here, this is going to be a massive win for the Olympus Bolts. Just Jake and getting Fire Giant. They don't know he's here yet. Ben, you don't want to take this 1v1. And did they not hear him?
I think they may have heard him, but they didn't know where he landed. Now, as soon as he comes out of stealth, he'll be hit with a stun. Barracuda trying to box up against Final K. Pagon soaking up some of the tower damage. PBM's on the wrong side of the tower. He'll be able to jump back, but how will the fight go after Barracuda? As soon as he lands, eats a ton. San Soccer being chased out by Lasbra in the jungle, and hi-rez will sweep in and take the kill.
But Lasbra still has the ult here, and he's trying to chase this one down. Anyone to take some of this CC. PandaCat, see you later. hi-rez is getting very low as Mike jumps in.
Mike chose in with Final K. It's the 2 frontliners trying to fight, but it's the 2 frontliners Dragons get absolutely blown up, and now it's Pagon versus the rest of the Bolts. He'll jump away from Ven. Pagon turns around to box up against it, but Venenu's got too much damage. It's a double for the Bolts and a wipe against the Dragons.
Ben goes massive there. By all accounts, should have died the second he went under that tier 1 tower, but he sits there hiding for as long as he could. Pagon goes to clear the wave. He sort of sneakily stealths past them and then immediately gets caught out, double relics, and then says, oh, we're turning this? Look at San Francisco's relics. He does not have Aegis. He went for sprint this time around. Always, 100% of the time, loses that 1v1 against Set just because of the way the relics are itemized. As long as Lasper doesn't get Krakened, he's always able to simply out-damage San Francisco until late game, and that's exactly what happened. Sam was wrapping around with all confidence and then realized, wait, Set does a ton of damage in this 1v1. After that, Lasper's able to chase it down. Pagon got some relics and some return fire, but a complete wipe, in the Olympus Bolts, despite being 4k down in gold, are in the driver's seat.
I had to do a double take there because Fire Giant goes down and I see a crack in the midst. I'm like, was that stolen? No, it was Venenu who transformed in order to burn through that objective. The Olympus Bolts were able to pick that up. They keep fire on 3, that being Lasbra, Ven, and Barracuda. 2, or at least 1 very important one to have it being on Barra, and maybe some fight back now. The Olympus Bolts have kind of kicked the rug from under the Jade Dragons and slowed down their pace. If only maybe for a short while. Barracuda airstrikes out, but he'll be met by PBM on landing, and Finoke from the route right after. Barracuda goes down quick.
Yeah, none of the Bolts were around to help that one, and unfortunately Barracuda did not have his beads available. This is going to be a Phoenix if they don't get back quickly. There's still a Draconic Transformation. There are still 3 ADCs here and a Poseidon, and it looks like the Olympus Bolts will back just in time.
And there's a Frenzy up for PBM too. As soon as Coerce comes back, the Dragons could try and do this as a 5v4 fight, but instead they will take the 1 tower they were able to grab and make a retreat instantly back. As nobody on the Dragons wants to contest against 4 of the Bolts, even the fact that the Bolts are missing Barra.
Yeah, Ben got a massive power spike as well. He has the Polynomicon online. He's got double flat pen and Doom Orb. This is the point where the Morgan finds one person in the jungle, and before you know it, they have 1 HP. You're transforming just to blow up your Dark Omen, and you get an easy solo kill. If Ben is able to find someone in the jungle, I think the Assassinate would not be too far off, especially because San Francisco doesn't have Aegis right now. Neither does Panic Cat. He opted to go for the shell, so the 100-0 potential is surely there as Lasbra sort of lurking, seeing if he can find out San Francisco here, but probably not wanting to commit too much without his ADC or his mid laner, who are still in base.
And the fact that Finoke was right around the corner, so not wanting to take that potential 2v1, probably didn't even recognize the rest of the Dragons were on the other side of that wall. And yeah, you're pointing out this, me, Charlie, and it's a good thing to point out, is the fact that Jake only has 2 items in this game. Pyromancer goes to the Dragons, Jake goes to the back line, and Mike will jump himself on out, finds a stun up against the support, and for that, the Jade Dragons will get the objective and they'll back themselves away.
Yeah, Awesome Jake is essentially exactly what you just saw. He blinks in, he pops Horrific, and he uses Furious Roar. That's it. He's lowering some of the auto attack damage, and maybe he sets up a little bit of CC with the Furious Axe or the Whirlwind of Rage of Steel. He's trying to set up as much as he can, but as a level 12 Xing Chen with 2 items, a Gauntlet of Thebes and a Pridwin, it's going to be very hard for him to survive this fight at all. So I think Jake probably needs to focus some farm now that everyone on his team is level 20. He has been sort of starving himself from farm on purpose. That's what he likes to do, saying, hey, we're a little bit behind. It doesn't really matter. I'm more of a relic bot and CC. I'm going to let you guys get the farm so you can stay even with their carries. It's worked out thus far. The Olympus Bolts, remember, we're able to sneak away that Fire Giant, and now they're essentially in this game. They're only 4k down. Fire Giant will be spawning here in about 5 seconds, but Jake definitely needs to find some farm now that we're at the 25-minute mark.
Yeah, he will be able to get that tier 2 item. Now the Triple Hunter all 1 item away from rounding out their build. Finoke does pick up a Wind Demon in that 5th slot. Deathbringer right around the corner. Pagon still his full item out. Panic Cat going with a pretty much completely different build than we're used to seeing out of any Hunter, even if their ability or auto attack. This is an interesting path that he's gone down.
Yeah, he's going for more so penetration because he still has to deal with, you know, the Haddix who has spectral armor and that sort of thing. But Barracuda, he doesn't have to worry about penetration. It's literally just Polar Bear Mike that has tank stats, and he will just be going for crit.
And PBM will eat the brunt of all of the damage from the bolts. Quarter HP on the Fafnir. Haddix trying to find some poke through the wall, find some damage up against Pagon. Finoke dives into the backline by himself and will dash on out by himself. The Olympus Bolts only expend a couple of charges of Haddix ult for that engagement. Meanwhile, the Dragons have expended 2 of theirs.
Yeah, as long as the Bolts are able to back up, get full health bars and reset, and then immediately try and pull that objective again, I think they'll have a pretty good shot here. All relics are still available, so even though Ven found a lot of damage on the PBM, he held that Draconic Transformation, didn't use any of his relics, and just said, I'm going to eat the full brunt of this. Fine, okay, though, it's going to pull this Fire Giant. All of the Bolts are pretty much back.
PBM will transform. He's going to have Coerce on lane and try and get everybody through. The Berserker is good. Jade Dragons get the Fire Giant, but can they get out from the fight immediately afterwards? Sam, full HP, doesn't have that crack, and Final K is going to be the first one to go down in this fight. It's Haddix who picks up the kill. The Bolts have found 1, but can they find more?
This tier 1 tower is still up there, not able. Barracuda threw some auto attacks into the tier 2. That is immune, my friend. That's not going to go down. They did find 1, as you mentioned. Not having Fire Giant on Final K is going to be a massive swing, but what are the Olympus Bolts going to do while Final K is dead? They're just even more far behind in gold, and they're going to have to back up here because 4 more members of the Jade Dragon still did get that FG buff, and that's 2 ADCs and a Poseidon. That's going to be a lot of damage that you do not want to deal with. Right now, I imagine the Olympus Bolts are going to group up on the left side of the map and try to find a pick before Final K can ult and join the fight.
And unfortunately for Sam, he's probably wishing he still had that Kraken on that escape because there were so many bolts that he probably could have slammed with that. Maybe get an Aegis or 2 out, some beads to kind of stop that chase. But instead, Final K is the one who had to use his relics. He'll lose them out, and it'll be a little bit of time before he'll have them back to himself. Just under 2 minutes until Final K is going to be fully healthy to try and go into one of these fights.
Yeah, now as we can see, the Olympus Bolts are sort of hovering around the Oracles. No one from the Jade Dragons is going to push out too far, except, well, Sam for Soccer, but he's speedy. He's allowed to do that. Final K has respawned here, and I'm wondering where exactly the Jade Dragons are going to try and push here. The left side of the map will always look solid, right? You want to go for that left side Phoenix. There is a tier 2 in mid, and there's a Trebuchet in mid. So they have a few different options to try and split up the map. We already saw Final K split pushing on the left side of the map, and no one came to stop him. He just ulted in because he was like, we can burn down this FG. Will he do that again? Will he split his attention? Right now, he is running down mid lane with that Trebuchet, as Polar Bear Mike is also clearing some waves.
PBM will just make sure that that Trebuchet can make a clean path to the final tier 2 tower standing for the Olympus Bolts. That is their last point of defense before these Phoenixes are all completely exposed to the Jade Dragons. PBM will regroup with the remaining carries of his team on the left side. Lasbra will sniff out Final K within the jungle. Final K will double dash using the wall. Now the minions are here. Darkest of Nights is used. Panda Cat's getting a lot of poke on the Phoenix, but Sam is getting a lot thrown right back at him by the way of Haddix.
Yeah, I thought maybe Final K was going to get 1v1 by Lasbra in the jungle, forced that ult out early, but once they saw how much damage was coming out, once they saw that Haddix was hiding in that wall, they had to disengage, and Panic Cat essentially wastes his ult. Now, though, where will they look to find aggressive? It looks like Ven is just sending his clone onto the door, trying to bait out anything from the Jade Dragon. This left side Phoenix still has to be the target as Lasbra is hiding behind.
Lasbra wrapping around, will clear out a ward, so the entirety of the Dragons know that Lasbra is by himself. An aggressive jump in by Pagon, not going to find anything. PBM goes for the transformation. Coerce and Frenzy are both available. And PBM once again trying to grab Lasbra, who's just so slippery on this set.
Yeah, they can just wait out the Draconic Transformation. That'd be pretty massive, but they have to go in here for this Phoenix, and the Coerce goes down. Frenzy gets popped, and they're going in.
A lot of damage from Haddix through the wall. Awesome Jake falling low as well. Kraken just off the mark, but Panda Cat does have the basic to finally slow that one down. First kill up, Final K goes in, but it will immediately go to the side of the Phoenix, and that one will go down right away afterwards. The Jade Dragons have finally broken the base of the Olympus Bolts.
I mean, that was a great fight by the Olympus Bolts. If Awesome Jake can simply survive, he's only level 14. He only has Witchblade to his name. That Kraken was enough to blow him up. The Pridwin proc could not get off. Lasbra is clearing out the minions, so it looks like Jade Dragons won't need those, but they're going in anyways.
Haddix throws some big damage against Panda Cat. Half HP on the Hunter, even lower than that. Lasbra goes in, but an Ankh gets popped right away. Sam tries to push Lasbra out, but Lasbra still finds that kill. All the while, Pagon just off the mark with the bladed arrow. It'll be a jump out by the Uller. The Dragons, they got their one Phoenix, the most important one to grab, but that's all they're getting with this Fire Giant.
Yeah, I really think the only thing that the Olympus Bolts need right now is to get Awesome Jake 1.5 more items, and they can win this team fight pretty handily. They've been looking pretty dominant. Whenever Ven can find these targets, whenever he can just get a beautiful poly shot, a stun poly into the Dark Omen, people are getting deleted. They just can't follow up. They need a tank. They need someone who can frontline. Haddix has a couple health bars with Soul Eater. He can heal himself up. He's got Spectral Armor, but they need someone to stand there and just CC. What Polar Bear Mike is doing, that's what they need. Awesome Jake needs to focus on getting a few more items so he can just stand there.
Sam still on respawn from that fight. The Jade Dragons can regroup around fire up in just over 20 seconds till it crashes back down. Pyromancer can easily be taken during that downtime. As we saw, Barracuda had to rotate to the left to keep those minions pushed up. Probably the best of their team to be able to try and hold that one back since he can fly his way mostly back to this Fire Giant pit. But because Sam wasn't here, the Dragons aren't able to push up too far in enemy territory to get some ward coverage.
Yeah, I imagine whoever gets this Enhanced Fire Giant is going to be such a good spot. The Jade Dragons were obviously pretty confident in just 50-50ing it last time with Kraken, but this time around, you don't want to be letting the Olympus Bolts get the Enhanced Fire Giant just because you pulled it. And the Olympus Bolts certainly can't let the Enhanced Fire Giant go down. You're already listing your left Phoenix. The Jade Dragons have so much global presence, they're able to split you up with no backdoor protections. Anyone but PBM can essentially solo a Phoenix right now. It looks like PBM is trying to just step up and find any sort of relics. They're waiting for those fire minions to push up. You see they're pinging. They're saying once someone backs and pushes those, that's when we'll go. Ven is the one who's going to have to back up because remember, he can turn into Final K and join the fight.
Will be Ven going up to the left side. The Dragons should have their call in just a moment to know that Ven is not a part, but Ven is making sure to hold back as far as he can. And we'll have to group up, and that's the call for the Jade Dragons. Transformation out of Mike, and it should be a coercive frenzy right after to start this Fire Giant. Ven has already made his transformation. He's already dove his way into the back line. PBM is the one who's low in HP. He'll find the jump out, but he'll get rooted right in place. And the Kraken, not going to do an insane amount, but it's already 2 down for the Jade Dragons. Final K in the back line, boxing up against everybody that he can. He's going to need some backup from Pagon. He's going to need some help from Sam for Soccer, and he'll get just that. 2 of them are already gone. Pagon gets knocked out, and Jake will jump himself out. Barracuda still holding on to the airstrike. Will find a path out. It's a massive turnaround crit damage. Barracuda will fly on out, but Awesome Jake will go down to Final K.
I don't really think it matters if Jake dies because Barracuda is doing so much damage. That's a beautiful axe.
No.
Barra's going to take a punch. He's critting back, though.
One more auto would have taken it onto Barra, but he'll be able to squeak out. Haddock's going to stop Final K from going back. Final K will dash into a wall of his own. Haddock can continue this chase, but Pagon is right around the corner, right around the wall. And instead, the Hunters will turn their sights to the Pyromancer. No fire between the teams, but what a bloodbath.
Yeah, I mean, it was just because they were trying to chase into Jingwei. Every time Barra popped that explosive bolt, he was hitting like 500 crits on all 3 members of the Jade Dragons there. Barracuda is able to fly back just to double check, make sure that Enhanced Fire Giant isn't being pulled. Someone is going to have to defend those left side minions, but Lazarus up in 5, and Nenu is up in 5, and Jake is also up in 5. The benefit of being level 16 is you have a very slow respawn timer. Now, though, it's essentially net even. There's a lot of relics down on both teams, but more so on the side of the bolts. The Jade Dragons have their chance to pull this, and Sam for Soccer's Kraken is almost back up.
Mike is searching for whoever's here. For now, he only sees Barra. Haddock has not been spotted on the backside of the Fire Giant pit. He can make his way in. Barracuda all by himself. The stun just off the mark by Mike, but the crits by Panda are even better. Kraken will find 2, but not do a lot of damage yet. Panda Cat still picks up the double kill all the while, and now it's Lasbra, Haddock, and Ben left to defend up against. Final K goes down. Lasbra able to pick up that kill. Venenu stunned, and Venenu down. It's a triple kill for Panda Cat.
Lasbra's the only one that can really help right now. Haddock is still hiding in the backline, but so many low health bars. Pagon's going to jump in here.
Jump in. Axe Toss gets beads away. PBM needs to find the stun on Haddock if they want to find this kill. He will. Pagon swaps on over. Panda Cat goes in. Pagon picks up the 4th.
And it doesn't look like Enhanced Fire Giant is on the menu just yet. Lasbra is here, and left side Phoenix will be dropping shortly. Look at the health bars, though. Sam for Soccer is 1 skewer away from death. Lasbra could go massive here. He has the Magi shield. He has the CC to be able to immune this, and Pagon is going to spot him out.
Pagon knows he's there. Axe Toss is off the mark, but the Fire Giant has melted under the hands of the Jade Dragons. Not a chance that Lasbra can steal that one away, but maybe he can find a lazy back in the midst of the jungle. But with that ward there, the entirety of the Dragons will know that he's standing by. And a brief pause in the action, not just for the team, but even for you and me here, Trelly, as we can take a moment to evaluate the situation at this point. The Jade Dragons sitting up 11,000 gold. Matters a lot less now that we're at this latter half of the game, 35 minutes in. But the Jade Dragons, they find massive picks in that fight.
Yeah, I mean, Pagon is just consistently jumping in, and I'm like, surely that's going to be it, right?
Surely
he's
he
jumping
dies.
in, surely he dies. Not enough. No, he's just, as long as he's hitting those axes, and PBM hits a beautiful stun there on Haddox once again. But, man, so much damage being dealt. I think Lasbra has an opportunity to chase right now. Kingslayer's not quite up, and I don't think Sam for Soccer's Kraken is up either, but as long as Sam is not lazy backing, should be just fine and able to reset here. Enhanced Fire Giant on 4. The Jade Dragons are in a pretty good position.
Yeah, trading out 1 life for 4 and an enhanced fire giant. Jade Dragons and pretty much any team in the league will definitely take that as a win for themselves. Now, it was to be noted that Lasbro was on a ward prior. That's why Pagon was able to see him on the backside of that wall and stop him from getting to the fire. Surely he's walking over that exact same wall now, so hopefully none of the Dragons are dumb enough to try and lazy back it. Now, I'm going to say it. Hopefully they're not dumb enough to lazy back knowing that there's a set still hunting in their jungle.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone's just going to – they don't want to throw this game away, right?
No,
they're
for sure
about to, they could close up the set here. That left side Phoenix is like 1 HP. It was about to die to a fire minion wave, but the minions were able to stop that one out. So I think the Jade Dragons have a lot of potential to just split up the map, make sure they dissect these Phoenixes, and then they have 3 ADCs. They can probably just all in that Titan.
3 ADCs, a Fafnir with transformation, frenzy galore. I mean, the Dragons have everything stacked in their favor now, including the gold lead, including the items as well. Lasbra does try and stop PBM and Sam from going too far. Sam will get the knockback up against Lasbra, who used the Kingslayer to try and get that chase in. But Lasbra will find his way out, and the Dragons can safely regroup and maybe spend up a little bit of this gold that's sitting in pocket.
Yeah, that was a lot of damage, but Lasbra was not able to clean that one up. Just the Magi's bubble will go down, and I imagine this fight, the next time they will fight, will be longer than 45 seconds away, so not going to lose too much there. Really, the Kingslayer cooldown is what you're going to be worried about right now. Jade Dragons, though, are grouped up, and they're heading down left side. One thing to note, though, is that Awesome Jake did get a lot tankier since the last fight. He now has Spectral Armor, so at the start of this next fight, maybe he'll be able to get that full Whirlwind of Rage of Steel off, get that Pridwin Shield, and be a little bit more of an effective frontliner. He has been hitting the Furious Roar pretty consistently, stopping some of the auto-attack damage from the Jade Dragons, and I think that Spectral Armor is certainly going to help out. The Bolts are sort of grouped in the jungle here. I don't imagine they want to leave anywhere out of their Phoenix and have their Phoenix help you. PBM might get caught out here.
PBM by himself against 4. Damage from Haddock's Kraken will clip Barracuda, and Pagon will put him down. Transformation out of Mike, and there are still 3 sitting within the jungle, but a couple of Magi's will be fine. Jake will pick up Mike and only Mike. Jake will not make his way out. It's fine, okay, to put him down, but Venenu trades out to get 1, but fine, okay finds the double kill. It's already 4 and make it 5. The Jade Dragons will move on to the final day of play. The Olympus Bolts will go home because it's a 2-0 for the Jade Dragons to close this set out.
You just can't put all of your damage into Polar Bear Mike there. Pagon with a clutch hail of arrows to make sure to confirm that kill on a Barracuda. If Airstrike gets off, that could have been a different fight, but just beautiful play from all of the ADCs on the side of the Jade Dragons, which there were 3 of them, and Sanford Soccer as well piloting that Poseidon. Mike was hitting all of his CCs. I don't know what his Twitter was talking about when he was saying he can't hit those hammers, because I saw plenty of stuns from that Fafnir.
No, it was him saying that he couldn't hit
no, that's
them.
what I'm saying. I don't know what he's talking about. He's trying to kick himself when he's down, but he's looking on top of the world right now.
Him and the entirety of the Dragons are looking fantastic. A clean 2-0 up against the Olympus Bolts to find themselves in the final day of play in the Spring Masters tournament. There are now only 3 teams left to fight for the crown of being the full-on Phase 1 champion. The Dragons, after a performance like that, are looking pretty hot to try and take the crown.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, they've adapted so well into this meta. It took them a bit, and I think given the fact that Final K has been able to adverse his God Pool so much, PBM is saying, I'll be the solo tank for this squad, and it'll be fine. You don't have anything to worry about. They've been looking so clean, man.
The Jade Dragons, you never know what you're going to get from this team. You never know what kind of composition they bring out, but whatever it is, they're looking pretty good on it. That's going to be us from the cast. We'll take it over to the desk to close us out.
Now, they're always going to be looking good, and it's something you can come to expect. In a tournament, at least at the beginning of the year, every year, they're going to make some sort of splash. And now they get to move forward. They'll be playing the Kings tomorrow, and then winner of that has to go up against the Titans one more time for both of those squads. The Titans 2-0, the only other teams left in the tournament for them.
That's true.
So it's going to be interesting. But Ro, we can ignore tomorrow until tomorrow. I guess until a little bit later when we talk about the bracket. Right now, we can just talk about this matchup. One good fight for the Bolts there in the middle. They sneak an FG. They get a team fight off of it. But outside of that moment, it feels like a majority of this is Dragon heavy. It's just a matter of can they get anything after these fights. They were always just a little too low or a little too far away from the objective they needed.
Yeah, all the Olympus Bolts wins we saw were just kind of sneaky plays, just finding little win conditions, little gaps, little gaps in the Jade Dragons armor. But when it really came down to the 5v5, Jade Dragons were kind of just undefeated in this set. basically anytime, like we said, anytime Mike finds a hammer, that character dies. Whereas Mike, on the other hand, getting caught out a fair amount, and he doesn't die for it. He was just able to live long enough, and then his team backs himself up. It's just no problem, no risk at all, being a relatively mobile support and being the only support on his team at that. It's just crazy the amount of setup that he can have and the impact that he can have on a game like this.
I will say I'm going to give my compliments over to the Bolts. I think they play incredibly well throughout this tournament as well, considering Bear is sick, man. I don't know about you. When I have fever brain, I can't formulate a sentence, let alone try to play at this level. So I think incredible for what they were able to do. With the Dragons come out on top here. A triple kill there towards the end. You got to see from PandaCat 8-3 and 12 for his slash line. And FineOK, look, this is something that I always think is really funny, but when you watch a solo laner stream, whether it's FineOK, if you're watching Nika, whoever it happens to be, you're going to see a whole smattering of gods that they're playing in lane. And it's nice to know some of that actually ended up turning out to be practice for this tournament.
Yeah, it did. That's the thing. That's the beauty of solo lane. You can kind of play anything, and then all of a sudden, Hunt has become meta, and we saw, seeing assassins that are meta as well. Not so many warriors and guardians. So the teams that are making it forward to tomorrow are the ones with that kind of deep god pools and that prowess. And we're seeing FineOK with 2 other hunters on his team and a Poseidon as well, all dropping similar KDAs, and then just Mike there sitting at 0-3 and probably, 30 assists, just being the support for his team, the support for his 4 carries.
Well, it is now. For the updated statistic, if you're wondering, Dragons versus Bolts 16-4 in terms of where those sets have gone. And some math, what was it, 16 games now that have gone the Bolts' way, and then 4 more, yeah, I think so. 42 wins there for the Dragons. And so things have just been going well. I don't know what it is about this matchup, but for some reason, 3 years of it, I guess, and technically maybe extending to 4 years of it for the core of the Bolts to now, has just been going their way. They get themselves a win right here. And as you can see, we eliminated, quite a few teams up to this point. Only 3 of the 16 remain. Tomorrow morning, in a best of 3, the Kings will take on the Dragons. Winner of that, well, they got to beat the Titans, and unfortunately for both of these teams, neither were able to do so today. But that's the glory of it, right? Now you get to go back, look at what went wrong for you today, try to figure out not only, how do we beat, like, if you're the Kings, how do we beat the Dragons? If you're the Dragons, vice versa. But also, what were the Titans doing that was just so strong today?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate they have to play another match before they can make it to the finals, but you could look at it a different way. We have more time to practice. We have more time to work up a new meta and a new counter to what Titans are doing, because clearly what they used today didn't work. Titans are on top for a reason. They're in finals already for a reason. They've beaten these teams already. So if these teams can work out a new strategy in their next set tomorrow morning, then maybe they can take it to Titans in the finals.
Essentially if you're looking at this as one really, really big, and you should, double Elim bracket.
Yeah, it is.
It's essentially a loser's finals into the grand finals tomorrow. A lot of fun Smite still to be had. 3 teams remain tomorrow. We're going to whittle it down to 1, but that does it for today. From myself, from Ro, from everyone in production, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.